Tanner. I am sorry I'm late. We are doing a special 2-hour live stream. Welcome to our July 4th. Happy Independence Day to all United States of American people and all of those people, US of A, whatever you want to call them, Americans, although America includes Canada, Mexico, and of course Central America and South America. But to all people of the United States, happy Independence Day from one American to another. I wish you a wonderful and enjoyable July 4th. And for the next 2 hours, for our July 4th special, I will be answering all of your questions related to history, social studies, and the like. So if you've got any questions related to that, I'm happy to answer them. So yes, happy Independence Day, Harry. Hello, welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. And I can see we've already got some people in the comments. I'm sorry I was late, but I originally thought I'd be able to start at 6, then it turned into 6:30. I'm just a few minutes late from that, and I just want to look at the chat that we've already got. And Steve says, President Lincoln is popular with some people who think he was the first to free slaves. You should know better. Lincoln got Americans killed in a war that combined the total of all presidents between Washington and Trump. Yes, Lincoln waged the Civil War and freed the American slaves. No one else had freed the American slaves. Lincoln was the only one who freed the U.S. slaves. Yes, he said he didn't care about freeing one slave. That isn't true either. Lincoln said if he could keep the Union together and not free a slave, he would do that. Then he, of course, when the Union was divided, redirected the cause of a war to actually freeing the slaves and bringing them the liberty and justice that the Declaration of Independence had promised them, which was long overdue. Lincoln's war may have been significantly responsible for the deaths of millions during the century after he died. That isn't true. By the second half of the 19th century, an average American should have been able to free the slaves without the Great American War. No average American was able to do that. Look at Franklin Pierce, Millard Fillmore, and James Buchanan. Freeing slaves wasn't something the United States was particularly good at by the 1860s. It was so entrenched into the society of Southern culture that freeing the slaves was absolutely necessary, but it was also something that had become so entrenched into Southern and antebellum society that it required a giant war to do it. Washington had slaves, yes, I know that. Russia abolished its serfdom a couple years before that. Many and more than many places had eliminated slavery before the USA. Yes, that is true. Many places did not have as many slaves as the USA, so freeing them wasn't as hard for them to do. The British did not have a large domestic slavery population like the Americans did, neither did the French. They had slaves in their colonies, which it was easier to free them. Yes, Lincoln was a great president. He was the best president. It's not even close. The King of France in 1315, Louis X declared that France signifies freedom and ordered all slaves and serfs. Yes, the Europeans had freed the enslavement, had ended slavery centuries before in the Middle Ages of slaves in Europe, but they hadn't freed their serfs for some time after that. Like the Russians didn't get around to it until the 1860s, and they still incorporated slavery with Africans, the British, the French, and others, until the 19th century. And then after that slavery, they colonized significant portions of Africa, extracting their resources while trying to civilize the Africans they believed to be inferior, very racist. Those first words in the Declaration of Independence weren't a new idea like many Americans believe. Yes, they were. Also, some societies, like those in parts of Australia and New Guinea, are believed to have never practiced slavery. That's probably not true. Almost every human society or civilization has practiced slavery. If it's every single tribe, could be, could not be, doesn't really matter. And for those of you just joining us, I'm answering some comments from earlier before. Before President Lincoln, without a great war, just to name a few, slavery was abolished in Mexico to the south, Canada to the north. Canada had significantly fewer slaves than the United States, and Mexico was in a period of huge political turmoil. They didn't have nearly as many slaves as the Americans did. There were 4 million slaves in the Confederacy at the start of the Civil War. Yes, it's not an American idea. It comes originally from the Enlightenment. You should know enough to use a dictionary and not make up your own definition of names and words. Steve always dislikes the idea that I consider the First World War to be the 7 Years' War, World War II to be the Great War, and World War III to be the war with the Nazis and the Japanese. He doesn't like that, and he's allowed to have his opinion, but saying that I'm not using a dictionary to use my definitions, no, I don't need to. I'm a historian. It's my job. On the other hand, unless it is a trick, you have an amazing amount of historical facts in your head. No. Anyways, happy Independence Day to everyone just joining us. And this is our Q&A Ask Me Anything, where you can ask me about any type of history, American history or otherwise, for the next 2 hours or so. Let me see. Hi, Hars. Good to see you. We had a lot of imperial slaves, but ironically, slavery in England had been illegal. Slavery of white people was illegal when William the Conqueror conquered. You still had serfdom, but you also had enslaving Africans thereafter was a common practice in Britain during the 17th, 18th, and early 19th centuries, which was ruled by the High Court at the time. Okay, what does number 3 mean? I don't know. What do you mean by number 3? Hello from Switzerland. Thank you for joining us, Tanuki, at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. So if you have any questions about any type of history, we're here to bring it to you. And as an American celebrating the 4th of July and American independence, I want to present two things to you. One, this will be a 2-hour live stream, so you will get 2 hours of Friendly Neighborhood history as a bonus for 4th of July. And you can also check out me reading the Declaration of Independence, which will be up on our channel at 8 p.m. Eastern today. So please go check that out. You get to hear me give a background of the Declaration of Independence, and also I will be reading the document. So I hope you guys really check that out and enjoy that. And that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, so in about an hour and a half. So after we finish the live stream, it should be up, and that video should be there for you guys to go check out. We are going live on X for the first time successfully tomorrow. We will have a chat available for you. So at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, we'll have the second part of our Q&A. And then after that, we're jumping over to X, where you can ask me anything, and that will continue for another hour until 8 p.m. on X tomorrow. So I'm really looking forward to that. So today you've got 2 hours here on YouTube. Tomorrow you have an hour on YouTube and an hour on X. And Sunday's our live stream lecture, where I'll be lecturing about the American independence movement and the Declaration of Independence. So I really hope you guys can make it. And if you enjoy this type of history and what you're learning about, consider liking and subscribing and becoming a Friendly Neighborhood historian. What do you think of Donald Trump's big bill of destruction? I love how people just love to categorize it by the big beautiful bill, the big ugly bill, the big bill of destruction. I think it's horribly mischaracterized by both sides. I think it's something, I'm not going to give my political opinion on it, but if you want to learn what's actually in Trump's bill that he just signed at the 5 o'clock hour, so an hour and a half ago, go and watch my video here or on TikTok. We're on TikTok as well as X, Instagram, and Facebook. Hars, please put the social media handles in the chat. And you can actually listen to me explain exactly what's in the bill and what it does. And I'm not going to necessarily give my opinion on it. I understand a lot of people's concerns with the bill, and I understand a lot of people really loving the bill. It's a very divisive bill. A lot of people really don't like it, but a lot of Republicans think it's pushing forward the Trump agenda and whatever, and they haven't been very good, however, at explaining the idea. So I'm from the United States, and because it's 4th of July, we're doing a 2-hour live stream Q&A, Ask Me Anything About History and Social Studies, where you can ask a historian, History Hefner, although I'm not using my usual smoking jacket because it's just too darn hot right now, anything you'd like about history and social studies. Tell me about the history of Cuba. So Cuba was originally, the Europeans discovered or landed there in 1494. I think it was Columbus's second or third voyage. Sugar, molasses, tobacco, the cash crops of the 16th and 17th centuries became extraordinarily popular, making Cuba a hotbed of Spanish activity, of colonization. They used the natives, and when the natives died off due to exposure to disease, they brought over hundreds of thousands of slaves to work the sugar plantations and tobacco plantations of Cuba. Cuba eventually fought for its independence at several different times, and with the help of the United States in 1898's Spanish-American War, gained its independence from Spain, instantly falling into the sphere of the Americans, who eventually in 1902 gave Cuba the right to become fully independent. A series of different business-interested, self-interested bureaucrats, generals, and dictators ran the country, keeping it close to the United States until the Communist Revolution of 1959, and Fidel Castro drove a wedge between it and the anti-communist United States, bringing it close to the Soviet Union. And the Castro brothers oversaw the operations of communist Cuba until I think about 2015 or 2016. So there's a quick summary of the history of Cuba. There were different native tribes. I'm trying to remember some of the names of them. I can't remember right now. I am not ignoring questions. There is no oil in Cuba. What do you think? Yeah, it's pretty hot over here. That's why I'm not wearing my usual smoking jacket. What do you think India and Pakistan war? Which country actually won? Pakistan is really being more and more aggressive. It kicked out 200 immigrants who were coming from Afghanistan, basically shooting at them as they expelled them from their country. It's also trying to build ICBMs. It's trying to get closer to Iran when everyone else in the Middle East is running away from Iran. So who knows? India has been more and more nationalistic, more and more anti-Pakistani over the last 10 years. We don't know exactly who won and what the impressions of it will be. Let me see here. Did you see my comment? You completely ignored it. How rude. The numbers against the name and is the leaderboard of who has posted the most comments. Okay. I'm trying to read as many of the comments as I can. I'm not going to read all of them, Bella. What's the history behind Kyrgyzstan? I don't know, Saeed. Should Iran have a nuclear program? Most countries have a nuclear program. The question is, what kind of nuclear program is it? Is it civilian? Is it militaristic? How does it exactly work? My knee-jerk reaction, being an American, when Iran says they want to destroy the United States, is to say, no, a country that wants to destroy another country should not have nukes. Terry, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I think you're slightly Islamophobic well, interesting. Well, you donated, so that's kind of weird. You donate and tell me I'm Islamophobic. How am I Islamophobic? I don't know how I'm Islamophobic. I have a lot of respect for Islam. I've done a lot of history about Islam. I've talked about Islam a lot in glowing terms and made a distinction between radical Islam, Wahib Islam, and mainstream Islam and things like that. Thank you for joining us from Ireland. We got people from Ireland and India. It's great to see everybody from around the world. Happy 4th of July to you too, Azaria. The cicadas hunt. I don't know the cicadas hunt, random guy. Puerto Rico was settled by the Spanish around the same time and eventually became an American colony after the Spanish-American War. Of course, Puerto Rico means the rich port. Let me see here. Let me see, moving through the comments. What do you think about Gabe Owners, the man who was deported and stabbed it? And then absolutely awful. Just an abuse of power at that point. It's a terrible thing. Let me see. Why does Mr. Trump look similar related to the late Queen of England? I don't know. Maybe it's all the orange. I'm doing my best to get through all the chat. I'm sorry if I can't answer your question, see all of your questions at once and answer all of them. Hello, thank you for joining us from Germany. Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Welcome to our 4th of July special Q&A live stream where you can ask me anything you want about history, American history, or non-American history. And we are going for 2 hours today, so I'm really looking forward to it. Why US intervenes in every war and will Trump get Nobel Prize? The United States has intervened in every single war. Sometimes it intervenes to create peace, and sometimes it intervenes for its own interests, such as with Iraq and Afghanistan. The idea of pushing democracy on the Middle East, because it worked in Europe, was a foolhardy expedition that went absolutely nowhere and only embarrassed America and led to the deaths of a lot of American soldiers and even more Iraqi and Afghan people. And today, the Taliban is still the government over Afghanistan. What's your opinion about ceasefire idea between Israel and Gaza? Hamas has issued interest in actually agreeing to the ceasefire now. At first they said they wouldn't, now they've shown interest in doing it. Obviously the images of the Gazans suffering for humanitarian aid and being attacked constantly is really, really horrible to watch. And as someone who has wanted this war to end since like the day after it started, I'm perfectly okay with it. Let me see here. Why U.S. intervenes? Okay, will Trump get the Nobel Prize? I don't think so. On the one end, Trump has done several different things that have actually helped pursue peace between Rwanda and Congo, India and Pakistan, the Iranians and Israel. He's working on Israel and Gaza. His biggest canard seems to be Russia and Ukraine, as he seems to be tilting his hand more towards Zelensky than towards Putin in the last couple of days, which is true. Although a lot of people have accused Trump of being bought and paid for by Russia, he's actually turning against Russia more and more and seemingly siding with Zelensky's efforts to undermine Putin, hoping that will bring Putin to the table. I don't think Trump's ever going to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I think it's a tall order. American presidents do not normally win it. And I mean, Gore, the vice president, won it. Jimmy Carter won it for non-presidential actions. Teddy Roosevelt won it as president, and so did Barack Obama for their interventions. Obama for peace in the Middle East and democracy in the Middle East, and Teddy Roosevelt for ending the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. Can you tell me more about the swollen gum situation? I don't know what you're talking about. Let me see. Yes, how can I help you? Let me see. All kinds of Islam usually end up with radical Islam. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, that's not true. I heard an injunction court order was first used by the Romans. Yes, the Romans had an extremely complex legal system, and their legal system was so good that it was updated only a few times throughout human history, but it inspired all Western history. Napoleon's famous legal code, the Code of Justinian in the Byzantine Empire, the American Law Code, a lot of the legal precedents for common law, no one being above the law, trial by jury, judges, a judiciary system harkens back to the Roman legal system. Marco Rubio is the U.S. Secretary of State at the time. Terry, I watch some of your lives, and with all due respect, you occasionally drop snarky comments at Islam or Muslims. When have I ever done that, Terry? When have I ever dropped snarky comments about Islam or Muslims? Let me see here. What would the U.S. be now if Joseph Smith, founder of Mormonism, won when he ran for president? He probably would have tried to establish America as a Mormon state. He had no chance of winning. The guy wasn't even popular in his own state. So Thank you for joining us from Moscow. We've got people from all over the world. It's always great to see. What's your opinion on Trump defending Netanyahu? I think he's grown a little tired of Netanyahu on certain things, but delaying his trial in Israel and threatening to cut foreign aid was a bad idea, at least in my opinion. Netanyahu has won a lot of global ire for his prosecution of the war against the Gazans, and many, many people see him as a genocidal maniac, and the Israeli government should go for a trial to see if that's actually true. Sorry, Jet. I need all the money I can get. I'm not going to remove anyone's comments, Terry, but I'm not an anti-Muslim. What do you think about direct democracy? I think it's really good in a society like the Athenian society in ancient Greece, where you have easy access to get every male citizen's vote. But when you have millions of people, it's extremely hard, if not completely impossible. Is Afghan Taliban multi-ethnic or just Pashtuns? I think it's different tribes in Afghan. I think the Pashtuns are the major tribe in it. I'm not exactly sure. It's a tribal area, but it's not just tribalism. It's obviously a branch of Islam, of radical Islam. Let me see here. The Gazans are being starved to death, but you're fine with Europeans having land they stole, which is against the Human Rights Convention in many ways. Europeans didn't steal that land because the Europeans didn't own that land. That land belonged to the Ottomans, Turks. The British administered it, tried to create a two-state solution between the Arab and British Israeli presences. Eventually, the Palestinians constantly refused. Some of them even aided Hitler in his promulgation of a Holocaust against the Jews. None of that excuses. And then Israel went to war with the Arabs to win its land on May 14th, 1948, when it was declared a nation. None of that ever excuses the human rights crisis right now going on in Gaza. None of that means that's okay at all. Who is the son of Genghis Khan and what did he do? Genghis Khan. I think it's Monkey. Is it Monkey Khan or it's Ogadai? I think it's Monkey, and then Ogadai is the son of Monkey. Basically continued to expand the Mongols, especially in Eastern Europe, where the Mongols went all the way, even winning battles in Vienna and in Russia. And eventually his death would lead to the rise of Kublai Khan, perhaps the greatest Mongol leader other than Genghis, who conquered the Song dynasty in China. Do you think we could ever introduce a modern version of ancient Greek direct absolute democracy? No, just too many people. Do you have any knowledge of the Battle of Schrute Farms? Not off the top of my head. I've heard of it before, though. Happy 4th of July to you, too, Jordan. Yes, Henry Ford was extraordinarily anti-Semitic, as were many Americans during the 1930s and 40s. Should also note that Wahhabi Islam is considered extreme by other Muslims for procedural and any excommunicate other Muslim schools of thought. Other than that, they are pretty normal. Yes, they are considered to be extreme. Yes, that is why ISIS and all the other radical terrorist Muslim groups target, if they aren't targeting Westerners, are targeting other Muslims. Yes, I'm clearly a Rothschild and a reptilian. Yes, Kyle, you clearly don't have enough to do with your time. Okay, I need to move my phone because I haven't been able to enjoy my tea because you've all been asking such great questions and making some strange, weird accusations with no evidence, but that's okay. That's snarky. Is that snarky enough? I hope that's snarky enough. That's not anti-Muslim, that's just saying that statement was wrong. Need to charge my phone, so I'll be over here. Let me see here. Okay, we've got about an hour and 40 minutes to go. It's our 4th of July live stream Q&A Ask Me Anything. So feel free to ask me anything about history and social studies and the like and subscribe if you're enjoying this. Ben Shapiro, no, not at all. Although I talk almost as fast as him. Obama dropped more bombs on civilians than any other presidents in U.S. history. Yes, I've heard that before. I don't know if that's fully true, other than because you got Harry Truman, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, so it's clearly not true. And you got FDR, Dresden, the Tokyo fire bombings. Hard to say that it's just Obama. Let me see here. Where is the documented proof being 9/11 incident? What do you mean by that? Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it. You're the best. And Hars, where's those social media handles? Let me see. If you guys can wait, I can get to all the comments. Obama got the Nobel Prize because of his skin color. I don't think that's true. I think it's because of his ideals, less than what he actually did. We got stickers coming for members. Bet you'd make cool stickers. I'll do my best. Got to figure out how those stickers work. I've been doing a lot. We set up a TikTok. We've been working on Patreon and Substack, so we do a lot here. But yeah, definitely have to figure that out. The summer, we're doing a lot in the summer. We'll also be streaming on probably Twitch or Discord, one of those. I forget. where I'll be playing a video game and talking about history facts for like an hour or two. So I'm looking forward to that. We are streaming tomorrow on X for the first time with a chat at 7 Eastern, and we're here every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the Q&A, where you can ask me anything, usually for an hour. Today, because it's July 4th, it's 2 hours. And then Sunday's the live stream lecture, and this Sunday at 4, we'll be talking about the foundation of America and the American Revolution. Do you think that Iran saved its 400 kilograms of enriched uranium and built nuclear bombs soon? I don't think they have the capacity to build the nuclear weapons soon, but I do think they saved that uranium. Who are the Freemasons and what's their mission? The Freemasons were a secret society of different peoples that became extraordinarily popular in the 18th century. George Washington was a Freemason, as were other founding fathers, and they were basically a secret society. I think there's 33 levels of a Masonic temple, and they're secretive, but they're also very much involved in community work and stuff like that, and they have gone down throughout the history and continue to this day. Got any music recommendations? Oh, geez. If you're want to get in the patriotic spirit and feel real country, real American, if you're ever going to listen to country music, Johnny Cash. Can't go wrong with the Man in Black. Yeah, and we sometimes remove comments that are from my moderators. We'll remove comments that are distracting or inappropriate. But I'm not going to censor people who disagree with me or think I'm this or that. And I find it fascinating that the guy that said I was an Islamophobe and makes snarky comments gave me a $5 tip. So I appreciate that. Do you think that Iran saved... Okay, you already answered that. Team Jacob? No, Team Edward all the way, man. No, it's okay. I'm really upset that you even got released. So it's all right, Sean Combs. I do my best, Jimmy Z. In your last live, you slid in a quick comment about the Prophet M marrying a 6-year-old to a Muslim, talking about the age of consent historically. Yes, to point out an inconsistency, because that guy always comes onto my chats, always is making comments about Islam being superior than every other religion or belief, and has insulted and racially profiled and racially attacked people who are not Muslims. And so I wasn't going to stand for it anymore, and so I threw that in. I'm sorry, but we've got people in the chat who are not always nice about everything that they are, and I usually am very nice to them, but sometimes it goes too far. I was pointing out that although the argument that Islam has created the best consent laws historically isn't fair when you can look at Muhammad himself. Islam itself has done that, no question about it. But those consent laws are based on certain levels of puberty and physical development, where in the West it's kind of commonly agreed that 18 is the age of consent in most of Western Europe and the United States. So I don't know, Terry, how that's exactly snide. I was bringing up something that's historically accurate in reference to someone making an all-inclusive superiority claim about Islam that just isn't fair when you consider its original founder. Direct democracy works very well in Switzerland. Is it just because of you? Yeah, it's also a very isolated country, very neutral. That's the reputation they've got. So you said something along the lines of, yes, Muhammad also married a 6-year-old, but you didn't mention that, did you? How is that not? Sorry. Because he didn't mention it. He was talking about how Islam has the best rules for consent, and I was mentioning how Muhammad himself didn't follow those rules if those rules were so great. So sorry, Terry, but that's just not true. Yes. Just like my Ukrainian friends? What Ukrainian friends? I haven't blocked anyone permanently. No one is permanent. Yeah. There's a mod axing people like crazy here. Yes, yeah, that's hilarious. Who are the Freemasons and what's their mission? I don't know what their mission would be. I blocked Evan for 24 hours. I did not block him permanently. Evan is welcome here anytime. Evan is a friendly neighborhood historian, like you can be if you like and subscribe. I think you're just spreading misinformation at this point, Bella. White Turkic Khanates didn't adopt gunpowder at the time of the Great Stand at the Ugra River. They didn't have access to it. The Turkic, so it's not like the Ottomans who proliferated it quickly. Most of the Khanates were actually quite backwards. And the Chagatai Khanate was in great decline and wasn't able to wield the power it had over the Muscovites as before, and that's why Ivan III was basically able to cut them off in 1480. And there's great mods here. To be sure, show them some love. Harry and Harsh do a great job. Let me see. Wahhabi and Taliban Islam isn't considered extreme in your reasons. You think also ISIS isn't Wahhabi. Westerners just lump them. I am saying, so Wahhabi Islam took root in Saudi Arabia. It is a popular belief that influenced most of the Middle East and had this idea of a stronger, more fundamentalist approach towards Islam. It has become extremely popular in Saudi Arabia. Different forms of it and different radicalized ideas have been proliferated amongst both Shia and Sunnis. That's why you have the Islamic Republic in Iran That's why you've got that's why you've got ISIS. That's why you've got Al Qaeda. No, not every single one of them is Wahhabi, the same way the Sauds are. But radical Islam has been on the rise. Fundamentalist Islam has been on the rise in the Middle East, and the greatest sufferers of that, as I've said many times on this channel, are ever Muslims. Do you think that okay? I've already answered this. Do not ask a question over and over again. I'm going through the chat as quickly as I can, and will answer them in a friendly, neighborly manner as soon as possible. Who create Taliban and present Osama a hero? The United States helped him with the Mujahideen, which was a resistance movement. Basically, the United States fought any enemy of our enemy was their friend. A mistake the United States has made with the Soviet Union, with Mao and his followers in China, and with the Taliban. They armed Osama bin Laden, helped him create the outlook of the Taliban, and then he turned on them and eventually created Al Qaeda. You have an attitude problem. It ain't cute. You block people who get under your skin mainly because you got an issue with Islam. You should change. Yes, that is an extraordinarily biased reading of how I am. Literally, I don't block anyone. I blocked one person for 24 hours, and this is your reaction. Bad reaction. What do you think about 9/11? I'm still comfortable believing the official story. If people can present me good evidence that the official story is not true, I'm happy to believe that and entertain that because I entertain all ideas. I'm a free speech absolutist here. Also, your mods are rude as well. They just randomly block people. Watch out at Terry. Sweet Bella, are you secretly Evan but in another account? Are you a burner account for Evan? Let me see here. It's funny, Sweet Bella. Yes, it is very liberal to allow as many comments and dissent as possible. So you're not going to get censored. No one's going to censor you. Interesting fact, the largest number of individuals deported under any presidencies happened under President Obama's 2 terms. Yes, that is something that Trump and his side are quick to point out when people complain about deportations now. So yes, it's parallel history. What do you mean by parallel history, Mr. Drew? Thank you for asking about history, by the way. What caused Japan's economic stagnation? The cutting off of Europeans in the 17th century, as the Chinese did, would eventually cut off trade routes and trade access, becoming a more insular society under the Tokugawa shogunate, which, like all great kingdoms and dynasties, eventually started to collapse and become corrupt. This happens in every single dynasty. A dynasty starts off strong, fledgling, it grows into a strong, powerful kingdom, and then it becomes corrupt, and that power is abused, and then it loses its hold. Japan's lack of exterior allies, exterior trade sources, and economic resources led to its stagnation. Once it opened up to Westerners, it became much more open to industrialization, Western ideas, and Western economics, and that is how Japan bounced back in an incredibly oppressive fashion in the late 19th century under the Meiji Restoration, which basically emulated many of the Western ideas, but basically on steroids. Bonjour à toi, David. Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel, or should I say bienvenue. Is it true that the moon landing is fake? If it was real, then why don't they prove it by taking a bite out of it since it's made out of cheese? Thank you. That made me laugh. I appreciate that. Call my name from Manal. Thank you for joining us. You don't have to scream. Why do people always scream? When you use all caps, it sounds like screaming to me. Yes, I've watched Roy Casagrande. You're allowed to watch more than one historian. I recommend History Matters, Spectrum, and Tea Time with Lindsay Holiday all the time because they're great. How do you see Issa Manor meeting with Trump? What could be the outcome? I'm not sure. It will be interesting. The Trump administration has really concentrated on strengthening ties with the Middle East, especially over trade and investment, while also trying to strengthen the Abraham Accords, which Syria seems extraordinarily interested in doing right now. I'm not doing the Lamar edit. Donate and maybe we'll talk. Yes, I understand, Drew, what you're saying, but when you consider those bombs, those are the real mother of all bombs. And a happy 4th of July to you, Natalie. Harry, all right, please don't remove Terry or Bella's comments. Just let them go. Because if we remove any of our comments, they're just going to say we're censoring them. We have the right wing and the far right party in America. Yes, and in Germany and in Britain, the far right seems to be on the rise throughout a lot of the Western world. I also recommend that you do a summer special when you do all your podcasts in nothing but a pair of underwear, because remember, skin sells. Yeah, Jerry, not my skin. James, not my skin. Maybe someone else's skin, but not my skin. And don't say it like that, because that sounds like some Ed Gein Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill stuff. Hey man, messaging you from India. Recently a plane crashed here. Air India flight to Gatwick. Plane crashed 5 kilometers. Yes, 250 people died. It was horrible. It was right before, I think, the war with Iran. Right in the midst of the war with Iran. It was absolutely terrible. And Otter, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us as always. And if you like history and enjoy social studies, consider liking and subscribing and becoming a friendly neighborhood historian. It's as easy as that. We had a big bounce this week because we just started our TikTok, and it has been a real blessing for us and for hopefully all of you as we're bringing over TikTok content here. So follow me here, follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram, follow me on X. We'll be doing a live on X tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. We've also gone live on Instagram, and we post content there as well. We have a Substack for articles and a Patreon for bonus content, including my series on the First Ladies. So if you enjoy the social studies or the vibes here, you're probably in the right place. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much. The United States dropped more bombs on Laos than on Germany during World War II. I believe that World War II is World War III, Steve, but yes, that is true. During the early 1970s, the Vietnamization process of Richard Nixon saw the U.S. attack Cambodia and Laos, seeking to basically weaken the supply chains of the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese access to invading the South. This really hurt the prestige of America and Southeast Asia, destabilized governments, and led to the rise of the communists in places like Cambodia. Which led to horrible, devastating results. But basically, it was an attempt to try to win the Vietnam War. My prediction is if Nixon had not stepped down because of Watergate, he would have reinforced America's attitudes about the North Vietnamese invasion, and Saigon never would have fallen in 1975. Hello, Taib. Great to see you. I'm not going to... Yes, I disagree with you wholeheartedly too, Sweet Bella. And not because of anything you're saying about history or Islam, because you're not really saying anything historical. You're just attacking me. But I'm not going to block you for that. Ricky Nelson, great singer. Besnett said there was a Treasury second Fed chair at the same time in the 1930s. Who was it? I don't know. Andrew Mellon was the Secretary of Treasury during the 20s. I know that. He's the one who first came up with this idea of cutting revenue, tax rates, marginal tax rates for the rich would lead to more revenue. He's the first one to do it under Harding and then Coolidge. But I don't know if he was ever the head of the Fed. And the Christian God is a genocide. Religious people are delusional. A lot of people believe that, and you're welcome to believe that. Femios. Yes. You're lying. Evan is not pro-Islam. He isn't a Muslim. He told me you just call him a Muslim because he defended Islam. Wow. That doesn't track with anything he's done or said, so I have no idea. Happy Colonial Swine Treason Day from the UK. Damn. That's hilarious. I love that. The British didn't find out about it until August 10th. And King George III wrote in his diary on July 4th that nothing significant happened today. And of course, he didn't know because they didn't have, telephones and televisions and X and social media and the internet. So he wouldn't find out for a month later. But it's kind of funny that he wrote that on the day the colonies declared their independence. I always find that really funny. But damn, it's hilarious. Yes. What is your attitude towards Tommy Robinson? So Tommy Robinson's an extremist from England, a right-winger who is basically an Islamophobe, has done a lot of exposés about where he has attacked foreigners who are Islamic who come to the UK. There's a lot of people in the Reform and the party in Great Britain, the National Front in France, and the AfD in Germany who are anti-Muslim and anti-Muslim immigration. And he was the first one to kind of start revealing that, him and Nigel Farage. I mean, that's what Brexit kind of was all about because of migrants coming from the Middle East who were majority Muslim, and Brexit didn't want Britain to ally with the EU's demands for migrants. So, okay, Tam, fair enough. The Union Jack is partially the Scottish flag, though. It is partially the Scottish flag. What are we doing for Bastille Day? Oh, yeah, James, that'd be cool. Talk about the French Revolution on Bastille Day. I've done that before. Maybe I could do I've done a lot. I think I've done at least one live stream lecture, maybe two, on the French Revolution. But I should probably do a full-length video on the French Revolution for Bastille Day. Great idea. Al, I don't talk about my personal life. I don't talk about... I've mentioned... people, if they've been around this channel for a long time, know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with revealing this, that I'm not gay, but yeah, I try not to reveal much about my personal life. Always good to see you too, Ricky. Tommy Robinson is only a smattering of insults and racists like him. I've heard that. Hello, Mexico. Thank you for joining us. An entire country, must be very busy for you, but thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. It's history, social studies. If you have a question or a topic related to it, I'm happy to answer. That's the topic. Sir, he recommended your lives to me. He told me he only asks about questions about Muslims or Christian history. I doubt he insults non-Muslims or other races. Go back and watch the live streams. That's all I can say. And I'm sure Harry and Hars can talk to you about that, Terry. Just so you know, in 1880, the majority of the United States agreed that a person who was 10 years was old enough to get married. Delaware had set the age of 7. Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. He is not permanently blocked. Freemasons is a social club. It was originally designed for free thinkers, but in today's world, it's a place where you go to make business connections, like the Ox Club. Yeah, it's kind of become a male fraternity. Let me see here. Someone banned Terry and Sweep. Nope, we're not going to ban people. Sweet Bella, you're from Russia. I'm a Russian historian. So if you want to talk about Russian history, I'm happy to. I really must protest. You must do something about your window treatments. It's okay. I'm fine. Just donate, give me the money, and then we'll upgrade the studio. I would love to visit Dubai sometime. Do you implicitly trust historical narratives? I love that question, Maggie. I implicitly trust them, but I don't universally and absolutely trust them. What is radical Islam? I think radical Islam comes from an overly strict enforcement of Sharia law. I think we can see it in places like Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and Syria to some extent. Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, these are examples of militant radical militias that ostensibly base themselves in their radical Islamic belief. And their number one victims, unfortunately, are other Muslims. Ishtar, hello to you. From a far-right freak who has no clue what tariffs are to a lefty who knows indicate details of what their positions are, polar opposite seems to be back. Kind of happening, yeah. There's definitely a political shift between the parties going on. Babar invaded India with cannons and muskets. Yes, helped us create the Mughal Empire in the late 16th century. Why Islam was, or destroy the Delhi Sultanate. Thank you, Jen, for mentioning that. Why Islam was superior or anything of the sort, he only added to the current topic. You threw a snarky dig at the Prophet Muhammad. A snarky dig that was it really snarky of me to do that. And it was a dig that happened to be true. So I don't know what you want me to say there. Thank you for watching from Oakland, Raul. Great to have you here. Otter, I'm going on X and I'm seeing bots everywhere. I don't know if they're bots. I don't really care. Hello, Madison. I'm from the United States. I won't say exactly where from. Ozzy, hello. Once I put my money in my bag and I lost them, I started saying bad words every my sleep. I'm so sorry, loser. That sounds tough. A descendant of what, Mr. Riz? Oh, that's a good question. What are the odds I'm a descendant of a historical figure? Genghis Khan, if you're Asian, the odds are pretty good. I mean, they're not great, but there are a lot of people, especially in Asia, who are descended from Genghis Khan. It all depends. I mean, there are African Americans who are descended from Thomas Jefferson because of his affairs with some of his slaves. Do you think China can be next superpower? I think they already are a superpower. China is producing the vast majority of resources. It has a huge monopoly on rare earth minerals and materials. Yeah, China is definitely a superpower. Yes, the United States did ruin the Middle East in many ways. But you've got to understand it's a cart and horse issue. Radical extremists rose somewhat in reaction to the United States. ISIS is a good example, but some of them were already there. Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, the Islamic Republic. In fact, the United States allowed the Islamic Republic to take over Iran in the late 1970s. What is India's history? What do you want to know about India's history? Because I'd love to talk about it, but it's the ancient land of what is now called India was the ancient Sanskrit word is Bharat. The first Indian civilization, the Indus River Valley people, started in what is now Pakistan. Then you've got different empires. The Mauryan, the Gupta Empire founded by Chandragupta. You had the Mauryan Empire. I think the Gupta Empire was able to defeat Alexander the Great, of all people. The Mauryans were the first Indian subcontinent empire, and India for the longest time meant Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. And implicitly also Nepal, Bhutan. Areas like this were close enough to kind of be involved. The British controlled it for about a century as a company, and then for another century as the empire, and it eventually gained its independence thanks to people like Jawaharlal Nehru or Mohandas Gandhi in the 1940s. And then the British divided Pakistan from India, and East Pakistan in 1971 became the country of Bangladesh. Both Bangladesh and Pakistan have large Muslim populations, and that is why they were partitioned from India itself, because India is majority Hindu, with many Muslims living in India and many Hindus still living in Pakistan and Bangladesh. And happy Independence Day to you, VDF. YT, thank you, and thank you for joining us from Canada, Palestine, or Israel. How about both and neither? I know it sounds crazy, but yes. Um, can we talk about the Holocaust? What do you want to talk about it, Naftali? I have an entire video on a lot of the things you guys are talking and asking about, by the way. I do long-form videos every Monday and Friday. They come out at 8 Eastern. Today, in about an hour, my one on where I read the Declaration of Independence and explain its history will be debuting, so I hope you go check that out. Yeah. I just saw something moving, sweet bell. Oh, wait. Funny. Hans, hello. They say India was on Persian soil. Yes, that was the claim. To be fair, the Delhi Sultanate was weakening. Just like the Mughal Empire came, they weakened. The Maratha Confederacy lost to the British, and that's how the British got a stranglehold on India. So, Raul, I hope you enjoyed that Indian history. Yes, G-Money, I definitely knew about Henry Ford being an anti-Semite. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. I hope you mean in the making the history that we talk about here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Yes, Mr. Riz, that's a very good and astute point. A lot of wars in the modern sense have been East versus West. The Cold War was a non-hot war, mainly because of the proliferation of nuclear weapons, which made it that way. You have the Korean War, you have the Vietnam War, you have the Afghan War, where the Soviets invade a Western kind of organization invades a Muslim country. Have you seen The Matrix? Yes, great movie. What's your favorite war crimes in history? I don't think anyone should have favorite war crimes. Obviously, the Nuremberg trials are fascinating to me and how they promulgated that. And thanks to Hars, we have the social medias in the chat, so you can follow me on any of those. So yeah. And sorry if I haven't caught up to the chat yet. I'm doing my absolute best. Bella is not right. Let me see here. And let me see. No, Jalen, none of that. Radical Islam, is it Wahhabi Islam? Yes, thank you, Taib. I love it. We're having civil war. So it's the day of America's independence, and we have a civil war in the chat. I've personally seen you offend both Christians and Muslims with one historical recanting your objective. Yes. I get people who say I must be a Muslim, and people who say I must be a Christian, and people who say I must be an atheist. Nobody knows, and I'm keeping it that way. I don't explain my religious beliefs. If you want to find out more about me personally, you can become a member. We'll do a members live stream, and in that members live stream, I will explain my exact religious beliefs, why I have them, and how I do my absolute darndest not to let them impact the way I report history to all of you. For all everyone knows, I'm a Muslim. I have great respect and love for Islam, for its history, and for its accomplishments. I know very well what the Muslim Golden Age is and what the Abbasid Caliphate was able to do in North Africa. I know what that. Let me see. Do you have military technology? A lot of it, as much of it as historically is necessary. Why did the Brits need to apologize to Germany? I think the Germans have to apologize to some other people. I'm reading your comments, Terry. There's your confirmation that I've read your comment. What year did Star Wars happen? The first Star Wars movie came out in 1977. Do you think it's dangerous for the far right to be in power in these Western European countries in America? Yeah. I mean, what does it look like? What does it look like? What are they actually proposing? What are the laws they actually pass? What do those laws say and do? And how are they infused, Ruby? That's what we're going to have to see. Yeah, let me see here. It's good to be around other smart people in this chat. Jen, it's good to have you here. You always have such great comments on my videos, by the way. If we were to go live in the Dark Ages, do you reckon you could get used to it? If we were to live in the Dark Ages, yeah, I think we would all have to get used to it. We wouldn't have much of a choice, but technology is so addictive to us, the idea of not being able to sit in front of a television even would be horrifying. Korea gets its name from Koryo, which was the kingdom that ruled over it and kept it autonomous, mitigating its factors between the Chinese and the Japanese. Korea has always stood in this liminal space, always being threatened by both of these geopolitical powerhouses in East Asia for dominance between China and Japan, such as when the Mongols tried to conquer Japan and were destroyed by the typhoons both times. The Japanese in the two Sino-Japanese wars. There you go. Let me see. I like crab cakes. Who doesn't like crab cakes? Pickle's a great one. Yes. Okay. Yes, Terry, I understand that that Muhammad wasn't the only one. I'm saying if you're going to argue that Islam has great laws regarding consent, you're going to have to explain that issue with Muhammad. Married her when she was 6, consummated it when she was 9, and that's never talked about. What do you want to talk about with Henry Ford? Happy Freedom Day to you, Toronto. So, although Freedom Day technically in the United States is Juneteenth. Would the USSR have won without lend and lease? Probably not. And the United States was basically setting up the Soviet Union with payments that it would never give back and was helping their soon-to-be enemies, something that they did with the Afghans and Osama bin Laden and with the Maoists in China. I'm trying to get through all the comments. I promise you guys I'm trying to get through all the comments. Love from Pakistan. Ali, you got much love from Pakistan? Don't spam the chat, though. And Harry, don't delete Ali's comments. He just wanted some love from Pakistan, from the U.S. back to Pakistan. And you've got it, Ali. I hope you're still here. Are you a Russian spy? Am I? I mean, Ozzy, right now they're lobbing missiles from Ukraine into Russia, and the Russians are attacking Kyiv and bombarding the Ukrainians, trying to get them to surrender. Thank you, Cedric, for joining us from France. Bienvenue. I love French history, French culture. If there's anywhere I could live in the world, any city, I would pick Paris. What's up, Andy? I'm good, Asfand. I hope you're good too. Is Mohammed Mary 6 years old, but you don't want to mention that, did you? Yes. So what? Do you agree that the IDF are terrorists? Because they obviously are. I think they've done terrible things. It's hard for me to say that a military enterprise is a terrorist organization, necessarily. I would even go so far to say that ISIS isn't necessarily a terrorist organization. The Taliban, sponsoring terrorism, fighting a war, promulgating war crimes, like in many ways the IDF has done, the ISIS has done, the Taliban has done, isn't the same thing as a terrorist organization in the same way that Hezbollah is. But then again, I consider Hamas a terrorist organization, and they're the government of Gaza, so yes, I could say that, Karina, you are right, they are terrorists, and they are definitely terrorizing the Gazan people and need to stop. Can you tell me facts about tunnel crawlers, clay kickers in World War I? What I call World War II, the Great War, don't know too much about them. I think they were sent there. I'm thinking about 1917 when I think of tunnel crawlers. Did they set mines and explosives underneath the ground trying to break through the trenches? Because that sounds like what it would be. Terry, no one knows the real age of Aisha. People at the time didn't have a calendar, and she mentioned different calculations. Yes, there have been different ages given for her. That is the earliest age. Man, this idiot knows nothing regarding the Middle East and is ignorant on how the U.S. effed up Asia and the whole other continents. Thank you, Malon Iosk. I appreciate you just throwing ad hominems. Tell us about Russia. I have 2 series on Russia, one the Russian Tsars and one a Russian history series. Basically, Russia is founded as a derivative of the Kievan Rus. Moscow becomes the cultural and capital center during the Mongol occupation of the 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries. And in 1480, Ivan the Great basically declares that the Muscovites are no longer tributaries to the Mongols. The Mongols line up an army to fight him at the Battle of Ugra, but then decide to pull back. Mongols always chicken out because of that. Tacos anyone? And the Russians and the Muscovites are able to establish their own independence. 67 years later, his grandson Ivan IV, Groshny, which means awesome, dreadful, or terrible, will establish Russia as a czardom when he calls himself the first official czar. There you go. Is it illegal to enter the USA without paperwork? Yes, as it is in many other countries. Are you a fan of Charlie Kirk? Why would I be? Tell us about Sri Lanka. Don't know a huge amount about Sri Lanka. I know there was the separatist movement, the Tamil Tigers. It was Ceylon. That was the government. That was what the British referred to it. I believe the British had jurisdiction over it. I don't know fully, and you're going to have to correct me, Kiyu, if I'm incorrect, if Ceylon is completely independent from India today. I think it is. Do you read historical fiction? Sometimes. Yeah. Let me see. Gamer Boy, hello. Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Yes, I look exactly like Barron Trump. I'm not nearly as tall as that guy's crazy tall. Yes, Persian Muslim history is fascinating. I have, Jen, you'd like my video on the Safavids, the Gunpowder Empires, the Safavids, how 12 Shia Islam rose because of Ismail's conquest in 1501 of the Persians. And then you had the Ilkhanate, which was the Mongol Persian Muslim Empire. Let me see here. Hi, Javid. What's some cool history you can tell us that you've learned about recently? I learned that Ivan the Terrible, because I'm doing my Russian history series, created two of the most infamous Russian military groups in history. The Oprichniki, which were basically black-hooded, black-cowled thugs that basically imposed an inquisition on the Russian people and helped destroy Novgorod in 1570. And the Streltsy, who were these conservative guardsmen who Peter the Great later abolished. I learned that he created both of these elite fighting forces that were huge in espionage. Basically, Russia's always had its secret police and always loved its secret police and has clamped down on resistance for the secret police, and that goes all the way back to the Oprichniki. I'm in the UK. We are already in dark ages. Wow, that's sad. As someone who grew up on an iPad kit, I would literally die if technology died forever. Femioids, I completely understand. I remember my first iPod. You've been correct about absolutely nothing, so don't tell me about history. Sorry, Harry. I'm doing my best here. Wait, so Koreans are a mix of Japanese, Chinese, and Mongols? Kind of. Somewhat. They have more in common genetically and biologically with the Japanese than they do the Chinese. What happened to the Hawaii fire's blue house roof survived? Not sure, Sabir. It's good to see you, by the way. It's been a while. Hello, Crick. What happened to the Mayans? Probably intermarried with other tribes. A lot of them probably died out. Migrated to different areas, things like that. Let me see. Dylan, don't spam about frogs. I'm good, Hanan. I hope you are good too. Hi, Hawaii. If you might enjoy my Hawaii, you might enjoy my my videos about Gay Pride Month. So there you go. Mateo, do not spam the chat with emojis. All remaining systems will bow to the First Order, and remember this is the last day of the Republic. Thank you, General Hutz, for joining us. I thought you were busy being dead. Hanan, Pakistan. Let me see here. Let me see. Did you read Yasser Arafat's biography? He said Palestinians have no national identity, and he will give them one by fighting Israel for war. Isn't a KGB invention and flag from 1964? The flag, the Palestinian flag, was originally the Arabic rebellion flag, which is why the Jordanian and Kuwait and Sudan flag are all similar. It's the Pan-Arabic flag. And in 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization took that flag and adopted it as their own. And yes, Arafat was an Egyptian who basically wanted the Palestinians to have their own separate identities from just be considered Arab. And he actually got very far with negotiations to try to get a two-state solution and rights for the Palestinians, with Israel taking the Golan Heights, the West Bank, and Gaza in a series of war. Remember, Gaza wasn't taken from the Palestinians by the Israelis in 1967. It was taken from the Egyptians. The Jordanians originally had the West Bank, and the Syrians had the Golan Heights. These areas, being Palestinian lands, were later apportioned and decided that these would be the lands. Arafat got 95% of what the Palestinians were hoping to get, the PLO, for a country, and he turned it down, believing he would be killed if he agreed to the Oslo Accords in 1995. If Clinton had gotten the Oslo Accords, he would have won the Nobel Peace Prize, by the way. Let me see here. Hi, Kiara. For the sake of logical consistency, we ought to label the IDF as a terrorist organization. To claim that it's not is to inadvertently legitimize its blatant war crimes and human rights. That's fair. That's a fair perspective, Femios. Did you read the Bible? I've read most of it. Naward, I haven't seen any of your questions. Ask the best ones you got. Johnny, hello. Do you think that sun shouldn't give light since it brightens the land? I think the sun's doing just fine. Hola, Pika. I hope you're doing well. There is no logical reason to define terrorism as including all non-government actors. Fair, Femios. I can agree with you there. I appreciate your consistency. Yes, I love you are incorrect, and you are stupid, and you are fat, and you are ugly. That is not a counter-argument. Saying you are wrong and having people say this to you over and over again doesn't make you wrong. Saying, that's actually not true, and here's why, that's correct. There are usual two methodologies, inside versus Mahadib, apologetics on reality. Most Muslim law schools consider that marriage did take place after puberty appeared, so it's allowed. For a 6-year-old? Even for a 9-year-old. It's kind of hard to have puberty there. Mike, I don't really reveal my beliefs. What do you think is under the pyramids of Giza? One of them's a tomb. So there's that. Hi, Carson. Did you know Kylo Ren has an 8-pack? I don't pay that much attention. Thank you, Jen, for listening. I really appreciate that. One day we will, that's something we might try to do this summer. I want to make a podcast. I want to make that different than the live stream. I want it to be not engaging with the comments where I'm just talking about a historical topic. The live stream is kind of like that, but I want to do it on a third platform and start an actual podcast, maybe on a website that you guys can listen to. That I really want to do this summer. And get on Discord and do some streaming and stuff like that. We've already gotten X verified. We're already doing live streams on X and Instagram. Our live stream on X is tomorrow at 7, following our 6 p.m. Part 2 Q&A here. We go to X for another hour of Q&A from 7 to 8 Eastern. And then Sunday at 4 Eastern, we have our live stream and we will be doing a podcast. So I really have a lot of big plans this summer. And we've got TikTok going, and that's been wonderful. So please follow us there. We've got Patreon, Substack, we have the X. Hearts, can you put the TikTok in the chat, please? And also, I've got Facebook, Friendly Neighborhood History, and Instagram is friendly_history1. Harry, can you put the Instagram in the chat since you are a loyal follower there? The irony is one of the major proponents of the concept of state terror to blame Islam is Erdogan. Not sure his ethnic cleansing of Irfan is that moral. It's a concept of free propaganda. Yes, Cedric, that's very true, and I don't know that the Turks should stand in judgment. Look at my video on what happened in Armenia and to the Greeks and to the Assyrians in 1915 and 16. Harry, I want to keep people's perspectives here because if I block them, they'll just say that I'm censoring them and they'll feel justified in their wrong beliefs. And yes, Joe, we ask questions about history and we answer them. I'm good, Stefan. I hope you are great. Do you believe aliens visit us? There was a Roman legion that was last to battle because they saw a metal disc in the sky and they were scared. Yes, UFO sightings have existed all throughout human history, and it's extremely hard to believe that in all of the galaxies of all over the universe that is expanding, that there's not one that couldn't possibly have life that is not human. Is it little green or little gray men? I don't know. Probably not. But it's not inconceptual. It's not completely crazy. And on Independence Day, for the sake of that movie, I'm totally willing to grant the existence of aliens. Hi, Hari Kumar. Can you talk about Bria? His boss was former head of USSR. Oh yeah, Bria. Yes. A comedy movie. Oh yeah. He was, I think you're thinking of the, Sabir, I think you're thinking of The Death of Stalin. And Beria looked like the guy who was going to take over or was going to be Molotov. And out of nowhere, Khrushchev comes up and kind of takes it from them. Do you believe the Bible is corrupted? Interesting question. So this is what I think of the Bible. I think that the Bible is obviously an ancient document, and ancient documents are subject to change, redactions, and edits. Is that corruption? No, not necessarily. I would say the Bible is no more corrupted than any other religious text. You have a oral tradition. That oral tradition develops into a written tradition at some point. This is Hinduism and the Vedas. This is the Quran and Islam. I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept the narrative of Jabriel giving it to Muhammad in a cave. I am not going to do that. Nor am I going to blatantly accept the idea that this is the thing. This is a difference. It's hard for me to find a parallel in the Bible because the Bible doesn't say that people were directly controlled, that the Bible existed in heaven with God forever. The Bible is a series of accounts, historical, poetic, and otherwise, that explains the Jewish and then Christian peoples. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily been corrupted. The Quran itself says the words of Allah cannot be corrupted, and the Quran says that the Bible is the word of Allah. So, interesting fact there. And he commands you to let his people go. Thank you, Mr. Moses Riz. What's the Undertaker, American president, deals with demons? What's an Undertaker? I don't know what you mean by that, Jamel. Do you know the major push factors of individuals leaving? Intentionally misspelled Colombia. So in immigration, there are two factors that cause people to leave an area and go to another area. There are push factors where you're pushed out of an area, and there are pull factors. Political instability, crime, the cartels, racketeering of drugs, those all seem to be issues in Colombia, stereotypically, that have pushed people away from that. Pull factors are, what does this country have to offer to you? So the real reason there's a large number of Colombians who have come to the United States is the pull factors that have always brought immigrants to the United States, both legally and illegally. The draw of a new land, the streets paved with gold, a brand new life, free this, a brand new house, a brand new opportunity, the ability to worship God, the ability to speak your mind the way you want, the ability to have your voices heard, the ability to assemble, the ability to make your own destiny, all part of the American dream and concept that was thought up with the Declaration of Independence, and even before then finds someone was mentioning that Steve mentioned that those are not that all men are created equal. It does not come from the Declaration of Independence. No, but that's probably the first major codifier of it. It has its background in the Renaissance, in the development of humanism, the study of the human being, and in the ideas of the Enlightenment philosophers, which I talked about in last week's live stream lecture. So, do you think there could be another war between India and Pakistan? India's blocks Indus water posing threat to Pak's public living? Probably, if that's the case. Yes, Diego Gata. That's Yota. That's a horrible loss, Aaron. I was reading about that. Just terrible. The man had just got married 5 days before he died. I do news updates, by the way, every day, so please check those out. What do you think of the Ethiopian Bible? Is it really the oldest? I'm not sure. I mean, the Armenians claim they're the oldest Christians. The Syrians claim they're the original Christians. The Catholics and the Orthodox claim they're the original Christians. The Protestants can't really historically claim that, but some of them do. I mean, the Mormons claim they're the original church, and it was lost and then refound with Joseph Smith. This is a common view in Christianity. It owes to the religious diversity allowed within Christian belief, where you don't have to believe everything unilaterally, and you can still be a Christian. But it also owes to division. So, and yes, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you, Taib. Really appreciate that. Do you know the history in the Caribbean? I was talking about Puerto Rico and Cuba. Columbus lands in Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, and Haiti. He encounters the Taino tribe, which was fighting with another tribe called the Caribs, who supposedly practiced cannibalism, and that's where the term Caribbean and cannibal comes from. Are you religious? I'll say this once, and I've said it before. I believe that there is a God. There has to be some sort of higher power. It just makes sense to me. The world works better under that. But I don't say what religion I am and how I worship or believe in that God. And atheists and agnostics and people who are skeptical are fully understandable and fully welcome. Do you think the Golan Heights will be returned? No. I think it's too existential to Israel's existence to give back the Golan Heights to Syria or to give it to the Palestinians. The West Bank will probably develop its own Palestinian government if a two-state solution is to work, and the Palestinian Authority will be gone, Netanyahu will be gone, and Hamas will be gone. And thank you, Marco. I really appreciate that. Do you think... let me see here. Porfirio, good to see you, as always. And the original Rodolfo, I don't know what happened to you, but we need to make you a moderator again. And you've got your moderating tools back. Yes, sorry, Marvin. I mean, I understand the Cave of Ira. I understand all of it. I've talked about the Hijra. I believe Muhammad existed. A lot of historians, Tom Holland, doesn't believe he existed. There's not a huge amount of historical data relative to the existence of Muhammad compared to that of Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, or Jesus Christ. But there is a decent amount of evidence that there was a movement out of Arabia in the mid-7th century that obviously took the world by storm and conquered huge sections of North Africa, the Middle East, and basically all of Spain. And all of Portugal too. And that is Islam. And I think that Muhammad existed, but I'm not going to not automatically accept the narrative of the cave. What about the Book of Mormon? I don't accept the narrative that there were tablets, but the concept of the Book of Mormon is even more ludicrous. I'm sorry, no offense to you if you are a Mormon. I understand why you believe what you are, but the history is really hard for you to argue. The idea that Semitic peoples, Hebrews, sailed in barges, which hadn't been created, to the New World 500 years before Jesus, built societies, had those societies destroyed by their enemies and the Native Americans, then then one of their generals buried the golden tablets. Nonsense. I'm going to say that Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon, and I'm going to say that without any problem. Greetings from Switzerland. We were just talking about Switzerland. Wolf, good to see you. If you could be reborn at any time of history, what time period would you choose? Late 1800s France. just so beautiful. The intellectual, the artistic life, the modern technology coming in little by little. The French Republic at its strongest. Just a fascinating life, and the Vie de l'amour is always amazing. Mr. Monaire, great to see you. The Gospels are terribly preserved. There is no verified oral chain, and different languages make it difficult to know what the original meaning is. That's true. You have Aramaic and Greek writers writing about the life of Jesus, and there are discrepancies, especially in the resurrection account. And that would make sense because the resurrection account is the most miraculous claim about Jesus in that. All ancient religious and historical texts claim incredible actions by their God. Why can't the Christians' holy book do that as well? Will you one day visit and vlog in the Middle East? I would love to, Sabir. We're going to make that happen. I'm going to go to Britain and hang out with Harry and Simon the Bunny, and we're going to do a live stream there. And I'm going to go to the Middle East and live stream from Jerusalem and from Lebanon and from Jordan and all these great places. Kodita, hello. The Golden State Warriors promoted. Yeah, hilarious. Why is it that 90% of British people have a great-grandparent who's from a different country, yet they are so racist to immigrants? It's fascinating that the British, it's that they don't see that. Britain has become more and more of a country of immigrants. Did the U.S. citizens interred in World War II get reparations twice? I think they got it once, the Japanese, and it's World War III. How many people died in the Holocaust? About 5 to 6 million Jews and about 5 million other peoples, including the Romani, aka the Gypsies, people with mental disabilities, homosexuals, and other Slavic groups. Thank you, Paul. You are so beautiful, too. I can't see your physical looks, so I'm going to say on the inside. Why U.S. bombed Japan? The U.S. was bombing Japan, firebombing Tokyo, doing all sorts of things to try to get Japan out of the war, worried about giving the Soviets more concessions in Eastern Europe and the Soviets coming to dominate more and more of Asia and the spread of communism. President Harry Truman decided to use the atom bomb so that the U.S., the Soviet Union, and Great Britain would not have had to invade Japan, and therefore used one on Hiroshima. When the Japanese did not surrender, he had the other one delivered to Nagasaki. Why'd you miss my question? How many? I didn't miss it. Do you believe in evolution, or do you think a higher power created all of life in one? I'm open to both ideas because I wasn't there. I talk about, when you look at human history, and I've studied human history, and I have to say human beings have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of history on this planet. How did you become a moderator? How do you become a moderator? Keep coming, keep supporting, keep liking and subscribing, put social media handles in the chat, be nice, show decorum, all of that stuff, Solomon. And so we've got Horace and Harry who put social media handles in the account. We've got Rodolfo, who always is encouraging people. Stuff like that can make you a moderator. Can't claim free speech if you won't talk about the Jews. I am talking about the Jews. And let me make something clear. I've got several people who come onto this channel all the time and are not exactly friendly to Jews, and I'm perfectly okay with it. I don't agree with it, but I'm perfectly okay with having them here and letting them talk. How many people died in the Holocaust, and should Israel have a nuclear program investigated? Yes, I think that Israel should come public and come clean about its nuclear weapons program for the sake of history. It's a dark secret that they just won't admit to, and the United States has to own up to its history as well. Owning up to your history is the best way to learn from it, especially your historical mistakes. I'd like to thank God for making me an atheist. That's hilarious. There are books from 1800 that claim the vaccines are scams and cause diseases. Look at the Amish. They don't use them. Amish, they've survived and they're the healthiest among us. I don't know if the Amish are the healthiest among us. We don't have extensive medical records of the Amish the same way because they don't use modern technology as much. But definitely that's vaccines is becoming a big conspiracy theory. And I'm willing to entertain that possibility. I don't know enough to say that. I was reading somewhere that they said that children with the hepatitis vaccine are 1,100 times more likely to get autism. But again, that's correlation, that's not causation. My favorite part is when Jesus returns to Galilee after being out and doing a bunch of fish and bread miracles, and none of his friends and relatives believe him when he tells them. I would love for you to be one, Solomon. Keep coming. Put the social media handles in the chat. Encourage people to come. Ask good questions, and we'll talk. I'd love to have you as a moderator. You're so supportive, and I see your comments on the channel all the time. Will today's technological advancements be like the Dark Ages in 1,000 years? I'm going to go up one more, Hababu. The 1900s inventions are the Dark Ages now. So by 2100, this will be the Dark Ages, assuming we don't plateau. Just the exponential growth of the technology in the digital and information age of the last 30 years, it's incredible. Why don't U.S. descendants of U.S. slaves deserve reparations? So the reparations given to the Japanese for people who were directly interred. The United States was trying to do reparations for the children of slaves during the 1860s and 70s, but the radical Republicans lost control of Congress, and Ulysses S. Grant's scandals and political corruption kept them from enacting their full agenda, which would have included 40 acres and a mule, basically taking land from the former plantation owners and giving it to the slaves. That would have been, for me, a fair form of reparations. Descended reparations seems to be a more difficult, taller order to argue historically. Do the Irish deserve reparations for what they did to the British? And do the Chinese in the United States deserve reparations for how horribly they were treated by the Irish on the railroads? I mean, the United States is difficult because you've got so many different racial groups acting in so many different ways that you could have reparations back and forth. The Apache, do they deserve reparations from the U.S. government for losing their land? Yes. But do they then have to give reparations to the natives, the Hopi and the other natives that they oppressed and stole land from? It's a difficult conundrum at that point. A direct one-to-one generational reparation makes a lot of sense. 40 acres and a mule would have made a lot of sense. The Freedmen's Bureau tried. It just didn't. Reconstruction didn't work because the radical Republicans lost political power. Otherwise, you probably would have had reparations within the first generation of the slaves. Let me see. Nice notes. The truth of the matter is, I understand where you're coming from. I understand the Nick Fuentes camp. I understand where people are coming from with all of this. I understand a lot of it. I don't agree with it. I don't believe it for a second. And I'm sorry. You just made the ultimate jump that just because I don't believe the Jews this, the Jews that, the Holocaust isn't the Holocaust isn't that therefore I have no credibility. I don't like that jump, and that's a leap in logic. Disagreeing with you and explaining my disagreement is not a leap in logic. To be fair, Jews and Muslims have kept their scripture in the original language. The Bible doesn't even know what its original language is or who wrote it. Contradictions, gaps, unknown, change. Well, to be fair, the Bible is the Jewish scriptures. The Old Testament is, and that's in Hebrew. So that's that's not fully true. Do you know any facts about Simu Haya? Not a huge amount. Father Desabos investigate work on the killings of Jews in Eastern Europe. The number is usually... Interesting, Cedric. Thank you for that. I'm from the United States, not going to say more. Favorite historical movies? In honor of 4th of July, although it's not accurate, it's historical fiction. The Patriot's it's entertaining, though. I can like a historical movie for introducing people to historical content, even if it's terribly historically inaccurate, because it's helping people to get into my field. And so even if it's not historically accurate, I don't mind when a movie is out. Hacksaw Ridge, The Patriot, Braveheart, these are not historically accurate movies, but they're fun. And I know they're all Mel Gibson films. Schindler's List is obviously a difficult film, but a very important film for people to watch. Nice Nose might enjoy it. Yes, no, that's a very good point. Thank you for asking that. Okay, I'm going to speed up to try to catch up with the chat. There's a difference between interpersonal racism versus how countries engage in foreign policies. Your anecdotes have nothing to do with foreign affairs. That's because people were asking about domestic issues such as Japanese internment and slavery in the United States. No, I appreciate your questions. You're good. I watched iRobot, and that was based in 2035. Interesting. Yeah, I've read the book. It's a fascinating story. Let me see. Chattel slavery was state-sponsored, though. It was state-approved, to be sure. If USA gets reparations, wouldn't the whole world do it? It would ruin the economy, bro. So many nations were enslaved. It's who gets the reparations and why and how. And yes, many forms of genocide, oppression, colonialism in different areas were state-sponsored. What I have said repeatedly on this channel is I think the truth. The Europeans were not unique. What made the Europeans unique were not unique when it came to bias and oppression. What made them unique was technology that allowed them to access other groups and oppress them. Much more so than those before them. Okay, Ophi, go ahead, do it. 200 views and 100 likes. I'm waiting for it. But Britain's racist people are almost always people who are druggies or low progressive people. Interesting. Yep, I've heard that. Do you think the supreme leader of North Korea really never... Yeah, it's just propaganda. Let me see here. I was about to say that guy is deaf. Bro was probably about to make a Cookie Monster argument. Yes. I disagree with that the economy necessitates large wealth inequality. I mean, every economy has had huge wealth inequality throughout its history. Every single one. Some more than others. Can you talk about Bill Clinton apologizing for the CIA performing radiation experiments on Americans recently in the 90s, but they got no compensation? Can you talk about it? I just did. Sabir, so what you're referring to, I believe, is Operation MK Ultra. That probably is something that is a basis for reparations. If people sought for reparations through legal actions, they would probably get them. So the question is, are people seeking for legal reparations because of MK Ultra? Where pesticides and LSD were sprayed in subways and other areas to see what it would do to the population? Are the British owed reparations as they were enslaved by the Romans? Does Italy therefore owe Britain anything? History can go on. Exactly, Global. It becomes ticky-tack of, the British owe us. Actually, the Romans owe us. Actually, the Etruscans owe us. Actually, the Carthaginians owe us. It can go back and forth for thousands of years. And where does it end? It's an infinite regress. I mean, plants are technically alive, but just not sentient. Did someone steal Napoleon's... I've heard that rumor. I'm not sure if it's true or not. I caught up from where I wanted to catch up. I'm getting close, though. If there was more gold than silver, would gold become cheaper than silver? I don't know. I just think so many people are so attached to gold, it would be hard for it not to get it. Is this the history guy? I guess you could call me that, sure. That's true, Femios. That's very true. Call me, hello. What's my background? I'm clearly a European American. Hey, Jason. Are we living in an authoritarian state? Oh, wow. Hey, check this out. For once, I'm actually to the bottom of the comments, and we still have dozens of people here, so that's good. If you're enjoying this, by the way, please like and subscribe. Becoming a friendly neighborhood historian is as easy as that. You can go check out all of our content that drops every day. Yes. Minnie, donate to the channel, and I'll do my Lamar Jackson edit. Plants are sentient, yeah. But you know what I mean. Plants, I think conscious like a human would be conscious. Are we living in an authoritarian state? No. Christianity is dropping 17 to 20% every decade. Other religions are increasing. Islam in particular. Do you think the UK government will allow Islamic UK? I think that's what the Reform Party is pushing back on. That's what the AFD is. They see this. A lot of people who are Christians and on the right are seeing this loss and are trying to clutch back at the society. And I've talked about this before on the channel. The reason you have the AFD and the National Front and the Reform Party being even more to the right than the Republicans in the United States, which are already pretty far right, is because the right-wing parties in those countries already, the center-right parties, the conservatives, the Christian Democrats, and then I forget what for French, I think Macron's party is supposed to be a right-wing, center-right party. Those parties have all kind of lost their mojo and have proven to be very ineffective at instituting what the right considers to be good conservative policies to protect Britain, Germany, or France. And so you have a rise of right-wing, of more extreme right-wing politics in that. That's why you have Bolsonaro in Brazil. That's why you have, I forget his name, the guy in Romania. And of course you have Milei in Argentina, who's just a libertarian. So you have the right, the center right not being effective in a lot of Western areas, so the hard right takes over. And you could argue that the George W. Bush Republican neocon conservatism of the early 21st century was kind of that center right, soft conservative approach that Donald Trump has taken and reverted. Although the right now is not the right of Ronald Reagan in the United States or the right of Thatcher in Great Britain. The right is more nativist. Reagan granted amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants. It's more nativist. It's more closed border. It's more protectionist. It abandons free trade as a principle of capitalist economics, and while embracing low taxes and cutting back regulation, like tons of right-wing conservative capitalist politics or libertarians, it embraces protectionism as a way to, and tariffs as a way to raise funds for people, for the government. So there you go. It gets easier when you consider so the right is different now. It's a different right, but it's a hard swing that's nationalistic, even not just patriotic like the Reagan-Thatcher days, but nationalistic. And yes, Labour and the left are Mark Carney in Canada. They're perfectly capable of being patriotic. I'm not saying the left is not patriotic. It gets easier when you consider the continued violence and suppression and the fact that some perpetrators still exist. That's fair, Naward. I get you. Yes, I mean, the Greeks were horribly enslaved by the Turks, but have not demanded reparations, although I'm sure they'd be happy with it. And Turkey and Greece continue to be kind of at odds. If in the last 150 million years food has been readily available to all mammals, why are people dying due to starvation today? Almost all starvation, almost all famine is caused by politics. Almost all famines are in areas where you have large kleptocratic governments that do not provide proper nourishment for their people. Look at many of the places in Africa. I mean, just doing my news segments, my daily news segments that I started this week, which you all should check out, where I tell the news in a minute because I try to do it in an objective manner. I'm sick and tired of the media being biased in this country and throughout the entire world. I mean, it's just incredible when you see the JNMIM, the Radical Jihadist Organization, which is what they call themselves, in Mali and Togo and Benin, just stirring up revolutions. The Sudanese, and how many people will die because of a lack of US aid in South Sudan. I mean, maybe. We don't know for sure, but that's estimates. You have the Congolese-Rwandan war ending only because the United States got involved, and that's why we know about it. But there's still all sorts of problems in that area of the world. You have the Nigerians in the Sokoto, the revolutionary group there, I forget their name. The Libyans continue to struggle with rebels even to this day. There is a lot of kleptocratic governments, a lot of dictatorships, and a lot of unstable areas where access to food and secure governments is not something that is easy. Oh yeah, there is going to be a live stream in 7 minutes on the Declaration of Independence Mom's channel. Well, yeah, it's going to be a live video, so you guys can go and watch that after you're done. Please stay for the rest of the live stream and then go check that out. It will be published on the channel where I tell about the Declaration of Independence and then I read the document. So I hope you really enjoy that. Are you going to on another platform today or another day? So Harry, tomorrow I'll be on X. So usually my plan is to go on X from now on to live stream for another hour on Fridays at 7 Eastern. Tomorrow I'm going to do it at 7 Eastern on X because today's 4th of July and I wanted to do 2 hours on YouTube. So I'm not going to go to X today, but I found out a way to get chat for my X live streams, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to live on Instagram and TikTok at some point, so you guys can join me there. Follow us on TikTok on all of it. And Harry or Hars, please put the TikTok and or the Instagram in the chat. Let me see here. Can you talk about World War II? British historian David Irwin, who gives a different analysis to the reasons for the war starting. There are people who have various different perspectives. I don't know what David Irving's perspective is on the war starting. I think the war starts in 1937 when the Marco Polo Bridge is attacked by the Japanese as a false flag in order to start a war with China. I think Japan's aggressiveness towards the French and the British and the Americans means that the war really starts with Japan. You could even put it back in 35 when Italy invades Ethiopia and overthrows Haile Selassie. Basically, I accept the general narrative. You have the Germans demanding more Lebensraum. You have the aggressiveness of Nazi rearmament. You have them violating the Treaty of Versailles. You have the British and the French warning and then trying to appease and not doing much. You have Chamberlain with the egg on his face, and then you have Munich. And then you have the invasion of Poland. You have the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the fact that the Nazis and the Soviets were actually working together and Stalin wanted to join the Axis powers. It is not talked about enough how close Stalin and Hitler got to becoming friends despite their political antagonism. So yeah, I kind of accept that general narrative. I don't know David Irving's perspective. Are you in the 80s? No. Which 80s? The 1880s? I'd love to be in the 1880s in Paris. I've said that before. Macron is a very moderate conservative, but mostly centrist. Yep, center, center left, center right. Thank you. It'd be interesting if Tommy Robinson does indeed work for Mossad. He's a big Israel supporter. I know that. Plants are not sentient. They do not have the capacity to experience qualia. Okay, we're going to go back and forth on that. See, I'm not a botanist. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a huge expert in that. Would you say there was a rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S.? It seems so to me. Yes, fears about hate crimes against Jews in the West tend to be at the top, even over Muslims or non-Westerners, believe it or not, or blacks in the United States, for instance. Poland in 10 years, I heard recently, is going to be ahead of Great Britain. Poland is experiencing an economic revolution right now. Let me see here. Do you think Trump is American first still? Yeah, I do. I don't know what that means. I think it's an ideology. I think it's a way to rile up his base. It's a way to get patriots to support him. And I think Trump, if you're talking about the America First agenda, I think he's still pushing that. He got it with his big, beautiful, whatever you call it, or big, ugly bill. So, yeah. Let me see here. Why are we not allowed to use our voice to love or hate whatever we want? Speech should be freedom 100%, but actions like hurting someone should be punished, but not just by saying it. Yeah, so there's this huge debate, Hababoo, about between free speech and hate speech. Should hate speech be free speech? So can you say, should it be banned for you to say, like it is in some places in Europe, that the Holocaust didn't happen? Not you can say it all you want on this channel all day long, and I won't condemn you at all. I'll disagree very strenuously, but I'm not going to condemn you. You can say it. Can you say, and many people consider that to be hate speech, but but it's protected speech. The truth of the matter is, speech according to the U.S. Constitution in the United States, speech that incites violence, like if you threaten someone or ask someone to go hurt someone, that's considered not protected speech. So there you go. And my phone is actually up to enough battery that for the next 20 minutes, because we're going to go for 2 hours, I can actually go back to my spot at my actual seat with my lighting and reattach, so we can be over here and I don't have to be holding with one shaky hand, and we can just have it on the holder and be back. Okay, there we are. Thoughts on my goat Zorhan Mandami. I think it's an absolutely stupid idea for the President of the United States to recommend the arrest of an elected official or his deportation. I think rather you should fight, if you don't like some of his beliefs or you don't like the fact that he's a Muslim, you can feel that way, or you can be worried about how radical of a Muslim he is, or you can be worried about what his politics actually are and if socialism actually works. But to suggest that he should be deported, or to suggest that he's not a rightful citizen, or to suggest that he should be arrested is a horrible and stupid and repressive idea. And I mean, anyone who technically intercedes with police and law enforcement is subject to be arrested. That's what Trump was saying in context. But I mean, the idea that he should be deported, just absolutely silly. Turks and Greeks have their own sovereign nations, not really the same. The Greeks were not sovereign in the 15 and 1600s. This dude is only getting love because he loves Palestine at Femios. Okay, do you think Turkey will join the European Union? No. Turkey's very clear that it's not European. No one cares about other countries' problems. Yeah, it's true. What do you think about the clean break report? What is the clean break report? And I mean, the guy has spent billions in foreign aid and has passed all aid programs, so they are reviewed by Doge. I mean, that's so insane. It's not totally insane. It's actually doable by the President of the United States. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that this idea that Trump is just always insane is just because you hate him, not because he's actually always insane. He sometimes is clearly insane, but that doesn't mean it's always every single time. We don't need to help every nation when we can't help our own American people. Well, VDF, thank you for telling me how you voted. I would say our secular semi-Christian governments are far more radical than the Islamists. Look at the Middle East and Palestine. What do you mean by that? Our secular semi-Christian governments are far more radical. How are they far more radical? I don't know what you mean. He has suspended most medical programs abroad, which will continue to kill hundreds of thousands of people. The estimates are 14 million in South Sudan may die. That's because of a suspension of U.S. aid. They don't know if that's going to happen or not. Who knows what kind of efforts might be done. But yeah, there is a trade-off, and the Trump administration needs to realize that everything is a trade-off. That's an economics rule. No, I would not do that. That's just typical politicization. Yeah, they are controlled. We choose not to help our own people. He has defunded food stamps and Medicare and limited Social Security and has stripped 17 million. Okay, Harry, that's a misinterpretation of what the big bill actually does. The mega bill does not strip 17 million people automatically of Medicare, or it does nothing to do with Medicare. It only strips people on Medicaid and SNAP by implanting work requirements, and it has exceptions. You need to go watch my video on this, and you need to read about it, because that's actually that's not fully true. That's rhetoric. And I am sick and tired of the rhetoric one way or another. Oh, this is the most beautiful bill. It gives all of these tax cuts. It ends taxes on tips. No, it doesn't. It ends taxes on overtime. No, it doesn't. It ends taxes on Social Security. No, it doesn't. Oh, it's going to cut millions of people off of their health insurance. Maybe. Not necessarily. And it's going to let old people die. No, it doesn't. And no one can get food stamps, and no one can get public health care. No, not true. Subtlety, critical thinking, and evaluation should be the way anyone in any country, and as an American, I have to do this because I have to look at this policy and see how it will affect my life, and the lives of those around me. And that's how people should look at policy and actually look at what it says. And AI is so easy, you can learn what it's in this big whatever bill you want to call it in 5 minutes. Just like you can learn what's in Keir Strymer's perspectives in a few minutes. You can learn what people actually have and have nuance. Harry, you have incredible nuance with the British Empire. As a historian, as a social scientist, as someone who's interested in social science, you need to do the same thing regardless of your personal opinions about Donald Trump. I sympathize with a lot of them, but I don't necessarily think it's fair to always just assume that he has done something terrible every single time, no matter what, and he's just insane. That is not how you defeat his ideology, and that is not how you actually responsibly report what is happening. And as a historian, our jobs, because we're going to be around for a long time doing history stuff, is to look back in 20 years and say, what did Donald Trump do in his second term as president? Because contemporary history is part of it. The reason I talk about geopolitics and politics on this channel in general and don't just shut it down and say history only is because it is history. It's contemporary history, and in 10 years, we're going to be talking about it as contemporary history. In 100 years, they're going to be looking back at us and wondering what the heck we were doing. There you go. Let me see here. Irving, as a historian, uses simple tricks by removing sources and ignoring others. Okay, I don't know enough about him. He has given massive tax cuts to the rich, raising taxes on the poor and the middle class. Harry, 85% of people will see their taxes lowered by the big bill. That's 100% true. That is not true. That is just rhetoric. I'm sorry, Harry. You're not an American, and it's not because you're not American, but it's because you hate Donald Trump. But that's just not true. It's like when people say Trump started World War III. Yeah, I know why you don't like him. I know that he's crazy. I know that he says stuff that's stupid. You can disagree with his policy, but when you misrepresent his policy, you only create sympathy for his perspective, for his ideas. That's why Trump derangement syndrome is, no one loves it more than Trump himself, because he loves to make liberals angry, and he also loves to get the attention on himself, and people will say, well, he's not that bad, is he? And then they realize, no, he's not that bad. That when you make a robber the devil, you take away the fact that he's a robber. Let me see. Watch from China, ni hao to you. Shishi, thank you for joining us. Do you think it benefits white people for racism to exist, considering that the only group racism benefits is white people? And if all this is true, then how do we need in racism in Britain? I mean, I don't know if racism only has benefited white people in all of history. I don't know if racism is benefiting white people today. In some cases, it certainly is. Yes, I mean, okay, qualitative, subjective. Thank you, Femyals, for saying that. I mean, the most you can do is minimize racism and make sure that those people are, yes, I agree with you, Harry. What do you think about the new Democrat running for the office of mayor of New York? I think he has every right to run. I think he has every right to explain his policies, and I think you can disagree with his policies. You can be worried about how radical of a Muslim he is, but this guy isn't Al-Qaeda or ISIS. This guy has nothing to do with 9/11. He's a huge LGBTQIA plus proponent. Last time I checked, ISIS was not one of those. He's a huge feminist. Al-Qaeda is not a feminist organization. This is not radical Islam. I'm sorry, it isn't. Maybe it's somewhat on some issues. The Intifada thing was kind of troubling to some people, but you can argue with his policies, but that doesn't give you the right to get rid of him. The U.S. has to stop supporting other countries. They don't seem to ever appreciate our help. I'm sure when we need help from other countries, could care less. To be fair, the British helped us out a lot in different instances. Why do Hollywood movies always make USA look like superhero that protects the world, but in reality they are a villain fighting countries for wrong reason? It all depends, because of 2 world wars they won in the 20th century, where they definitely were not the villains. I wouldn't say the United States is always the villain, but it's certainly been the villain in the Middle East. My dog has cancer. I'm very sorry about that. That's really unfortunate. Poor dog. I think it's time for America to get back to the old ways it was like 100 years ago. You mean when women could barely vote and African Americans were segregated, Dustin? Careful. Good old days are not good old days. I hate that phrase. I hate right side, wrong side of history. I hate history repeats itself. History rhymes. It doesn't repeat itself. I hate, and I don't like the idea that the good old days. Let me see. Why is the first ambulance servants as respected firemen are respected Coast Guard respected but are not because we are not serving community the way it should? I don't know what you mean. Firemen are respected, Coast Guard respected, but police are not. Police are not respected because of potential violence, and they don't kill people, and the firemen do not kill people. think the USA will stop giving weapons to Ukraine. They did stop. Now they're open to resuming because Trump and Putin have hit a wall, and now Trump is going to side with Zelensky. So Trump's actually changing his perspective on how to end the war. The New York mayoral candidate is considered some left-wing nut job, even left-wing by European standards. The guy wants free buses, a rent cap, etc. I mean, what's not to love? It's the issue of who's going to pay for it that Americans are always worried about, and Americans always see socialism and communism as hand in hand. Liberal cities declining and being run into ground, Republican states thriving. Is that really true? Aren't all the poor states the Republican states? Where did the idea, I'm just asking for a friend, where did the idea come from buying Canada, Greenland, and Panama? Okay, Sabir, so it's not actually a Trumpian idea. Canada, there was actually a movement in the 1800s in the United States to expand Manifest Destiny and annex Canada. The United States tried to invade Canada in the American Revolution and the War of 1812, both horrible failures and terrible ideas. And I think this one is slightly less terrible. The only reason it's slightly less terrible is that Canada is in steep economic and societal decline right now and is really struggling compared to the United States. Texas has a bigger economy than Canada. California has a bigger economy than Canada. Canada is struggling, and the United States would actually solve a lot of its economic woes if it annexed it. That's the only thing that makes it less crazy, but it's not happening. There was an act in Congress in the 1840s to annex Canada, believe it or not. The United States occupied Greenland during the 40s because Denmark had been occupied by the Nazis, and the fear was the Nazis would use Greenland as a base of operations to attack the United States because the Danes owned it. After the war, Harry Truman, fearing the Soviet Union and the Arctic Circle, tried to buy Greenland, and the Danes wouldn't do it. And the United States is not trying to buy Panama, the country, but the Panama Canal was originally built because the United States helped form the nation of Panama by causing a revolution against Colombia. Theodore Roosevelt. Trump is trying to take full control of the Panama Canal as a way to control trade and to block the Chinese from using it. It's basically a geopolitical economic attempt by Trump to grow American interests internationally, stop worries about Russia in the Arctic Circle once again, as well as China using the Panama Canal. So that's the theory that the Americans should retake the Panama Canal, buy Greenland, and annex Canada. And believe it or not, the Americans have thought this before. What do you think would have happened? American colonies didn't get support from France. I don't know. I don't know that they would have won. Greetings. Thank you for joining us from Brazil, Alan. As a European, I disagree with you on Turkey wanting to join the EU. Part of Turkey is in Europe. Yeah, but not the capital, not the major part. The Turks don't see themselves as Europeans. So they're totally different people anyway. Well, not fully. Does this guy work a real job, or does he just come on here and rant? I mean, it's 4th of July in the United States, so most people who are working are not working today, like government workers and stuff like that, and I do have a real job, and no, I don't work today. But thank you for wanting to know all about my life, Thunderclap. Let me see. Thank you, John. By the end, 17 million Americans will lose their health insurance. There's no guarantee that they will. The people are losing their health insurance. It all depends on who is losing their health insurance, how they're losing their health insurance, when it will take place, and why. It takes years for this to actually be enforced. It takes the work requirements change the way people can get medical insurance. It doesn't, but the idea that people are losing will not have any medical, that people won't have options for medical insurance and that they've stripped all medical insurance is absurdity. What do you think would have happened in American colonies? I didn't answer that. Yes, it defends nearly all of the healthcare programs run by the government, so it will kill people. No, that is not true. That is absolutely not true, Harry. I'm sorry. I'm not saying I love the idea of millions of people being kicked off of Medicaid. I don't. But I'm saying that that's not true. Make alligators great again. That's funny. Yeah, that place is crazy. Yeah. Harry, the concern from the right in the United States about the Department of Education is that 50 years ago when it was first created, the Department of Education had American schools at the top. Now American schools are really bad. There's a lot of questions as to why and a lot of reasons as to why, that some of which are out of the Americans' hands, but the right argues that the Department of Education has either not done its job or is purposefully responsible. The growth of the administrative state in the schooling system has led a lot of Americans to call for the end of the Department of Education and to return those funds, even the special needs funds, to the states for them to continue those programs on their own, educating their people as they see best, because the states don't all educate on the same level. Yeah. Okay, let me see here. Hi, I left. You know Caribbean history. I mean, I explained some of it. It was Columbus. I talked about the Carib tribe, and that's how you get the name Caribbean in Hispaniola when he first got there. Um, Let me see. And you're telling me fully suspending funding for the food delivery, water delivery, medical programs, vaccination programs across the world is insane. I'm not saying that isn't insane. I'm saying, Harry, that you have a track record of misrepresenting, because you dislike him so much, what he actually is doing. I don't. So when you say that, I'm not 100% sure if that's what's really happening. I've said before that I'm perfectly willing to call something insane that's insane. Let me see. Let me see. The guy needs to watch Lil Wayne. Racism is just made up by the Dems to mislead you. I've heard people say that before. I've heard that Lil Wayne stuff. Let me see. The issue with the programs that I have heard, the argument that other people have made, Harry, and I'm just trying to strengthen your own arguments, is that the programs are taken control of by bureaucrats and kleptocrats who've been manipulated and use it for their own monetary purposes, and the money that has been thrown billions of dollars into Africa has not actually gone to the African people, and some of that seems to be true. Cutting all the programs, is that the response? Probably not, but yeah. When did you think Thomas Massey should run? What did you think about Thomas Massey should run for president? His wife mysteriously died after Thomas killed. I don't really know about that, Sabir. I'm not a politician. I'm not a political analyst. I talk about it once in a great while. 9/11 was an inside job. I've heard a lot of people say that. People calling Mondani a communist, making me want to bang my head against a wall. I mean, he did say seize the means of production, so you got that, but that's a common socialist trope as much as it is a communist one. And there's no other way that private philanthropy in other countries can pick up the bill, but the U.S. now leaves. Maybe the British can do it, Harry. Mr. Mamdani is fine, however, I just dislike how he has strong views and then joins the gay pride parade, makes nothing. Okay, let me see here. I'm getting past the politics because I've talked enough about the politics, but enough people have asked me questions. What's the most impressive thing you've ever read about someone doing in a non-religious source? Most impressive thing you've ever read about someone doing in a non-religious source? Lincoln freeing the slaves, Gandhi and civil disobedience. I think those are non-religious examples of incredible things being done. What do you think would have happened to American colonies? I answered this already, Mario. Let me see. Explain how the Brits have helped America. Well, so let's see. So you've got the Brits helping the United States during both world wars, and the U.S. helping them back and forth. So you've got kind of that going on. The British have been America's strongest ally. They've been the strongest voice for American hegemony in Europe. They've allowed American hegemony in Europe. They allowed NATO. They basically allowed the United States to dictate the terms of what Europe, particularly Western Europe, would look like after the end of the last World War. Do you think the war in the Middle East will ignite? No. No, it actually seems to be cooling right down. Hamas has even expressed interest in joining the ceasefire. Let me see here. You're a snowflake who can't handle various views online. It's called an opinion. Everyone has one. I hope you're not talking about me. Oh, Bale, please bring some history. Everyone wants to talk about politics, and I get it, it's 4th of July, but please bring some history. If you have a question about history, I'm happy to answer it. I'm happy to talk about geopolitics from as an objective lens as I can, as I do on this channel all the time. I just want some history, though. Let me see. Who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals next year? Thank you, Kendrick, for asking a question that's not about history. Or, sorry, that's not about politics. I think Boston could be back. Denver might be really good with Tim Hardaway Jr. We'll see. Like, he refused to ID, suspend visa, deport people not followed to process, ignore the Supreme Court, other things. Harry, I have corrected you on this several times. You just continue to insist upon it. It's not true. I'm not saying he's great. I'm just simply saying there are certain things, as an American, that I know for a fact are just complete media spin. Let me see. That's very true, but try. Denmark belongs to Germany. Why does Denmark belong to Germany? Are you just kidding? I hope you're just kidding. USA politics is so confusing. I think that's how they like it. So everyone just ends up arguing about everything and distracted. To be fair, I used to think that America was ramshackle, that it was just a ramshackle group of thugs when it comes to politics. But then I see how they fight, how politics and parliamentary arguments descend in Britain and Canada with them just yelling at each other, and it's kind of fun for me to watch. Canadians do not want to be America, and believe me, Canada is better of a society outside the U.S. Yeah, I don't know what Canada would look like inside of the U.S., Harry, but Canada's having its problems. There's no doubt about it. Are you in college? No. I have both a bachelor's and a master's, though. Pooja, hello. Let me see. Let me see. I think America can have Canada. Please tell me you're joking again, Ankino. Any thoughts on U.S. bombing Iran's nuclear power plants? Everyone wants to talk geopolitics today, huh? So I'll give you the historical perspective here that might help. Iran developed nuclear weapons and has been enriching nuclear weapons over the last 10 years, or has wanted to enrich nuclear capabilities to produce a weapon for the last 30 years. Every single U.S. president has tried to stop this in one way or another. Barack Obama had the original agreement that Iran agreed to, and then Donald Trump tore up the agreement. Iran reneged on the promises, began enriching uranium. The Biden administration really could not get a new deal made. Releasings of funds to the Iranians by both Obama and Biden were heavily criticized by Trump both times he became president, and now he has decided to work on a new deal with them at Oslo next week. We'll see what actually happens. And basically, the bombings on the nuclear facilities, the results of those have been mixed. It looks like there was significant damage done to the nuclear facilities themselves, while the uranium may have been stored away, and there may have been other places where they can enrich it. So the fear of a nuclear-capable Iran kind of still remains, but is more shadowy than ever before. There you go. Did you read about a Mason named Alfred Pig predicting 3 world wars? 2 wars happened as he predicted. Yes, and I've heard about Nostradamus. With only 60,000 people, could the USA buy? With only 60,000 people, could the USA buy Greenland? I mean, possibly. I can imagine you working in an ice cream parlor, but one of those 60s swing type places with those weird paper hats. Don't take that offensively, friend. Fiend? Are you calling me a fiend? Turks are culturally more Eastern, and the whole East versus West distinction is a social fiction anyway, so I say Turkey is not a part of the West. Yes, thank you. But bringing them into NATO was huge because keeping them from falling into the communist orbit at the beginning of the Cold War was a huge accomplishment of the Truman Doctrine. Yeah. I don't know about the health premiums, Harry. I'd have to look into that. I'm not going to say you're wrong if I don't know. Let me see. Harry is a great Brit from Great Britain. Let me see. Turkish people are ethnic and not white. I agree. Yes. To be fair, there are Indo-Turkic peoples. There are Aryans who have migrated from Europe to Turkey and back, and all of that. So they're not too different. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. And Kino, hello. Sneaker, yeah, that's very nice of you. Yes, I do like my hair like this. I do need to cut it. It's getting too long, though. Do you like the movie American History? I haven't seen it. I probably should, being a historian. Let me see. We're 14 minutes away. I said 2 hours. I'm still behind on the chat. Hope you're all having a wonderful 4th of July. Hello, Ismail. Hello, and Kino. Let me see. Medicare is insurance. Medicaid is for destitute people and children, I think. Yes. United States of America first. What does that even mean, Robert? Hello. Yeah. Gandhi was a racist. Gandhi was indeed a racist, but he had his good parts. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. Breakfast comes first, so I'm going to say the egg. You're from Pakistan, Ismail? Well, thank you for joining us. Nah, it's okay, that one person. One time is enough. Let me see. Shivam, thank you for joining us from India. Do you support Trump? I'm not going to talk about my politics. I'm not going to talk about Donald Trump. I'm talking about him in context because Harry's asking questions. And all I'm simply saying is that any leader, be they Macron, be they Mamdani, be they Trump, should be analyzed for what they are actually saying, not what people are saying they are saying. That's hearsay. That never stands up in court, and it's ridiculous, and it's unfair, and it's not what I do as a social scientist. Can you explain how UK would be different if they acknowledged the claim of Marie Lacroix Dupont? I don't know what Dupont said, David, so I can't say for sure. History is political, since being right-wing relies on being divorced from reality and misinterpreting both current and historical events. Okay. Whatever you say. Were people in the past getting more enjoyment from reading books than we are today or watching YouTube? There's different types of your brain that are activated when you are reading or accessing text materials than when you are watching a video or watching television. And I think people were probably more fulfilled reading. Tell me about the Boston Tea Party, please. I need to know about the Boston Tea Party. Don't scream. When you do all caps, one person, you sound like you're screaming. But basically this, and since it's Independence Day, it makes a lot of sense. Talk about it. The British passed the Townshend Acts in 1767, which established taxes on a bunch of different goods, including tea. The British rescinded all of these taxes because the Patriots continued to protest lead and paper goods and things like that. But the tea tax remained, and the Americans continued to boycott and protest against it and to actually terrorize people. Yes, some of the American patriots and revolutionaries were actual terrorists. They would take people, put hot tar on them, stick feathers to them, and basically torment them in tarring and feathering so that they wouldn't have to pay their taxes. Then they took a bunch of shit. Boston became one of the big places because Boston was a huge harbor where a bunch of goods came in. The Americans consistently protested and boycotted, and 5 of them were shot in a protest in the 1770 Boston Massacre. Yeah, 1770 Boston Massacre, which was heavily overblown by the Patriots, especially their leader Paul Revere. 3 years later, in December of 1773, when the British sent tea to Boston Harbor, it was in a ship, and the Americans, just like Native Americans, ran onto the ship and threw over the tea. This forced them to close down Boston Harbor and eventually caused a series of events as the British pressed down more that led to the Patriots trying to gather weapons and ammunitions, which would cause the Battle of Lexington, Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, and the beginning of the American Revolution. Yes, Brad, just because you say something is not true doesn't mean it's not true. That's fair. Hello, United States of America. You must be busy. Happy birthday to you. Canada rocks. USA can keep dreaming. Canada does rock. I love Canada. I love its history. I love its society. I love learning about it. And yes, the US can keep dreaming. But Canada does have some problems right now. Yes, Harry, I agree with you. Friendly, what are your thoughts on the history of ancient Texas? Is it true that the ancient Texans had the world's largest booger wall? I don't know. I've heard something about that, but I don't think that's true. So that was Trump's fault. What was Trump's fault? Was it such a big deal in the past heating hot water we take for granted? Yeah, you had to heat it over a fire. You had to heat, and hot water is a relatively modern luxury, but accessing it for bathing took a while because the water had to heat up. You had to make sure it was relatively clean and things like that. The reason people loved heating up water, they could heat it up to boiling temperatures, and that could kill most of the bacteria. So, but yes, bathing on a traditional consistent front in the West is a modern invention. But bathing in the Middle East and in Egypt, that was somewhat common in the ancient world. The Greeks and the Romans loved to bathe. And bathhouses and the bathing systems were part of the Roman sanitation system and were basically like malls. You could go there and you could go have lunch. You could go and buy stuff. It was not just a place where you could take a bath. It was a place to commiserate and to be part of a community. Why should Iran not have nukes? Why should they? Trump, very busy man. How did Israel acquire nukes? Basically, the idea is in the early 1960s, the United States, with a wink and a nod, basically slipped Israel the information on how to develop nuclear weapons. They won't admit this, and they should for their own geopolitical integrity. I don't get why some countries are referred to as sovereign and others are not. Is this just an excuse to give certain nations fewer rights? Yeah. Sovereign means that it is run by the people of that nation. The way a nation state is formed, thanks to the Treaty of Westphalia, and this is how the West understands it, is a people in a particular country elect leaders in a government. They establish that, and that is a sovereign nation with its own borders separated from other places of the world. That has its own government and probably its own distinct culture, maybe even its own distinct race, and acts as its own on its own behalf in relation to other countries. So that's why you would say that. So if you're invading a sovereign nation, you're invading a nation that isn't part of you. Let me see. India and Pakistan have them? Yes. So the common argument for why Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, or why a lot of Americans don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, is the fear that they will use it on either the United States or Israel. The fear of a radical Islamic Revolutionary Republic, which has been pretty radical and has called for the existential destruction of other countries, is a huge reason why people don't want them to have nukes. Americans can have nukes, but no one else can. We're hypocrites. Except Canada, except the French, the British, the Russians, the Chinese, the Indians, the Pakistanis, the North Koreans. Did I mention the Chinese already? I mentioned the Chinese. I'm trying to think if there's any other countries that have nukes that I missed. There's plenty of countries that can have nukes other than the United States. Hey man, messaging you from a faraway Indian city of Ahmedabad. Recently, an Air India plane. Yes. We talked about that earlier. 250 people, horrible loss of life at Air India crash. Yes, that's true, John Mason. I think they should be required to sign that treaty. Great Britain are part of Pakistan? What? The entire world will be nuclear within 50 years? Could be. Yes, thank you for calling me friend, John. You are my friend too. Gaia Han, great to see you. America used to be home of some of the smartest, most intellectual statesmen. Now it's a bunch of theater kids. Kind of seems like that. U.S. like war. Yep, that's true. War is good for the economy in the U.S. Can you explain why Turkey has various races? Is it something to do with the Ottoman Empire? Yes. The Ottoman Empire was huge and expansive and included many different ethnic and religious groups in its periphery that many of them would probably want to live in the home state, in the home area. And Asia Minor is a crossroads between Europe and Asia, so of course you're going to have many different ethnic peoples going there. And you have Constantinople, which is a huge cosmopolitan center and all of that stuff. Would socialist or communist nations have survived without the Cold War? That's a great question, actually. I don't know. They might have had a better chance, but I don't know if they would have permanently survived. Why did Benedict Arnold betray the Patriots? The basic idea from Benedict Arnold was he was passed over for promotions, he was jealous of higher-ranking generals, and he never seemed to get the glory and credit. His wife was British, so there was a conflict of interest. There was videos of ICE wearing masks and refusing IDs. There was videos of ICE just picking people up off the street. Yes, I have seen that. And as an American, that is extremely troubling to see. What's your views on immigrants? I've done entire live streams talking about the importance of American immigration and how it's a huge part of our history, and I think any argument that is made that immigrants come here and steal jobs is stupid and ridiculous because it's been made a bunch of times before in history. The Italians were accused of this, the Jews were accused of this, the Greeks, the Irish, and the Chinese were accused of this. Every immigrant group who's come here has been accused of this, and the Hispanics seemingly have suffered under it the most recently. Trying to get some Rev War questions out there because we're doing a lot of politics. Yes, thanks, Lifeline. As in not incorporating capitalist mechanisms. Okay, I already answered that. Tar and feathering, which was caused, is literal terrorism. It was horrible. A hen has eggs without a rooster being around. At its peak, did the British, but it's not fertilized, Steve. That's why eggs are not chicken abortions. At its peak, did the British Empire rely heavily on taxes? I've heard you couldn't even make candles at home without paying a candle tax. The taxes that the British put on the Americans, that the Americans caused their revolution for, and Harry will like this, were relatively low taxes. And I think I'm going to finish with this because we're almost at 2 hours, and this is about the American Revolution. But taxes were extremely low. They were lower than they put on their Indian colonies that they had just acquired in the 7 Years' War, which I believe to be World War I, which is why I call the Great War World War II and the War with the Nazis World War III. But the British the British implemented even heavier taxes on themselves. And after they lost the American Revolution, went to Australia and Canada and put taxes on them. So yes, the British had heavy taxes throughout their whole system. The Americans didn't mind marginal tax increases because they had the lowest rate of tax increases relative to the British. The American objection that led to the Revolution and the Declaration of Independence and the first July 4th was that the British were taxing them without their consent. It was no taxation without representation. Since they weren't being properly represented in the taxation and did not have a voice in Parliament, they felt that their rights were being violated and the king was becoming a tyrant. So, and you can check this out by watching my video on the Declaration of Independence that comes out today. It just came out at 5 o'clock, where I talk about, or 6 o'clock, or 7, 5 o'clock Pacific, where I talk about the importance of the Declaration. Then I read the Declaration, and a huge part of the Declaration is an indictment on the British king. So basically, Gayahan, the Americans never accused the British of taxing them too heavily. What they didn't like was that they had always been taxed by their local assemblies in their colonies, taxing them and then giving a portion of those taxes to the British. They had paid their taxes to the British for a long time. Death and taxes are the 2 for sure things in life, according to Ben Franklin. But the fact that they weren't represented in Parliament and the king was directly taxing them is why they revolted. So there you go. I'm behind on the chat. Okay. Yes. There we go. I've explained that is a great place to end. Because of them being taxed without representation, that was what caused them. No taxation without representation is what caused them to eventually boycott and eventually rebel. It led to the revolution. It led to the Declaration of Independence. It led to America becoming an independent country, and it led to the celebration of July 4th. Yes, and the king with no... I wouldn't say that he didn't have any power, but he didn't have full power. And Parliament was definitely doing some of the work when it came to carrying the purse strings, which the Americans would adopt for their own legislative branch a couple decades later. So, and I think George III just gets a bad reputation because of the Americans, but he's actually a great king and has a lot of great popularity. Grandmaster, donate and I'll do that. Who's the hottest? Oh, Cleopatra. Come on. And she was actually incredibly intelligent, cosmetically beautiful, extremely well-read, extremely educated, and extremely savvy, and a great commander. So, anyways, Coletta, good to see you. No Grandmasters League, donate, and I'll do, or become a member. I'm sorry, Grandmaster. I can't help you there because I'm broke too, and I'm doing this to raise awareness for this channel and grow our brand. Like and subscribe. You're dying? Well, you have time to go to a YouTube for a live stream, so you'll die doing what you love, YouTube. You're a Whopper or Big Mac? Big Mac. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat, which I finally caught up to. I'm sorry if I did not answer all of your questions. Humpty Dumpty fell over because, I don't know, maybe he tripped, maybe he was drunk. Anyways, and then Helen of Troy, yes, very, very attractive. Anyways, so... like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then at 7 Eastern, we are going over to X, so you get 2 hours with me tomorrow. Can't wait for that, 6 and 7 tomorrow. And then at 4 o'clock on Sunday is my live stream lecture where I'll be discussing all of this, and I will be doing probably 2 topics, so you guys can go on the YouTube channel and vote. Follow me here. You've got you've got all of the handles there. Harry, can you put the Instagram in the chat so that everyone knows my Instagram? I know you know my Instagram, and I am not Trump. But thank you, Patriot. I appreciate it. I do my best. Thank you for subbing. Mason, Femua, great to see you for the first time, I believe. So thank you for joining the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. If you want to become a Friendly Neighborhood Historian, remember, like and subscribe. Yeah. Really good stream. This is one of the only short streams that I stuck around for. Well, I appreciate that, Femios. It was good to have you here. I really appreciate your perspective and your ideas. You might like my long-form content. I've got short-form content here every day. Yeah. Friendly History 1, so friendly_history1, that is Instagram, where we go live and do other content and stuff like that, and you can follow us on Patreon, and you can follow me on TikTok. Let me go here to my background. Oh, by the way, I should have probably had this background here. Yeah, there you have him sign the Declaration of Independence. None of that would have ever worked if Washington hadn't won the war, though. There's the Battle of Yorktown when the Americans finally won. But let's see here. I'm gonna just really quick, just so you guys can see it. Let me see here. I had it. Dang it, where'd it go? Because I just made it. This is I'm gonna show you real fast. Did I not select the photo? Oh yeah, here it is. So yeah, there's my TikTok. Friendly History. So go join us there and all of that stuff. Why so short? I usually go 1 hour, so I went 2 hours today. So yeah, follow me on TikTok, Friendly History. Yeah, you're in Okinawa. Fascinating, egg sandwich. I am in the United States, so I'm going off in Eastern Standard Time. You would prefer around 3 hours. Dang. Maybe one of these days. I mean, we go for 2 hours on Fridays usually, 1 hour here and 1 hour on X, and we'll be doing the hour on X. So we're doing 4 hours of a live streams back to back Friday and Saturday. Hope that's good enough. And then Sunday we have our live stream lecture. I usually only go an hour, so sorry, John, but it was good to have you here. Let me see here. Don't use X or Insta? Well, that's okay. No worries, John, but you're here, and I'm glad that you're here, and you can join, and you got 2 hours out of me, so there you go. And go back and watch all of the live streams. We have them all on recording if you want to watch them. And Femios, I really appreciate all of you guys. You're scared to engage with the people. How am I scared to engage with the people exactly? I just don't know. I went over 2 hours to engage with them today, even when they were calling me all sorts of things. This live stream started out with people just attacking me because of the Islam thing, then attacking the politics and all that stuff. I'm guessing there will be no Q&A on Sunday as we've done 4 hours. Yeah, probably just going to be doing a live stream. Like, I'm tired. I'm talking about politics and geopolitics from an objective perspective, so I'm not arguing with anyone politically. Harry, I'm not saying I disagree with you fully. And I just want to let you know that what I'm saying is I'm not going to accept a narrative that I know to be false, even in modern geopolitics. I'm not going to do it for history, and as a good social scientist, I'm not going to do it for politics. And Harry, some of the stuff that you said that I thought was true, I did say was true. So it wasn't just me standing up for Trump because I think Trump is incredible and I'm wearing my MAGA hat and I'm an American and I'm a patriot. It's not even that. It's if something is true, I will report it. If something is not true, I will report that too. When is the Discord? probably sometime in July. I'll be going for like an hour playing Rise of Nations, the OG RTS game. You should all join, play, and just talking about random history stuff that comes to my mind. I do get some viewers there and stuff, but I do other stuff. I do posts and updates and stuff like that. I appreciate the compliment, Adev, but I am not half Chinese. But from my perspective, what I said isn't false, but from a European perspective, Donald Trump is a complete madman, even by conservative. He's definitely inordinate. I will say that. He is inordinate, crazy, off the wall. I understand why you're saying that. I'm saying don't say something that isn't true about him. That's clearly a media-driven narrative, and I won't do that. And that's why I look at him and I say he's not a crazy idiot, and this is not what he's actually doing. Look at what the policy actually says, and then debate it. And you may not like it. I know I don't like certain parts of it, but there you go. There's your prerogative. Same thing with Zohran Mamdani. He's not a radical Muslim who wants Sharia law in the United States. He has never said any of that stuff. He has said that he wants all of this other stuff that's socialism, and that's what you can debate here in the United States like people do. Let me see. Anyways, so hope you enjoy it. I mean, Harry, the idea that it's going to kill you talk about how you're killing millions of people. You talk about this. You talk about the end of the public option. You talked about him being a madman. Not necessarily true. So, I don't know if he is. It might be why they're not releasing it, but if he was on the flight list, why didn't they release it sooner when he was running for president? They could really take him down. We'll see if it's actually true. Yeah. Anyways, so you got all the handles there. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut it out. I went a few minutes over just to explain that. But yes, Harry, just know I'm not fully disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I'm going to try to report these things as accurately and fairly as possible and disagree with them. Here's a word for everybody. Steelman. Steelman me, steelman everyone. I will steelman you. Take my perspectives and my opinions on history, social studies, and the like, and and if you don't agree with them, make them fairly represent them, and then argue with that. That's a steelman. And do the same thing with no matter what, and you'll be great with it. I'm saying that as a historian, as a geopolitical analyst, I can say if I think something he does is crazy, but I'm not going to say he's a madman right off the top. Anyways, so yeah. Cameras on the red light, CCTVs. Are we into the Orwellian world? We'll see. Anyways, I'm done. Yeah. So, I will see you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern here, and then 7 p.m. we go on X. And, yeah. And I'm sorry. Yeah, Harry does need to go to bed. It's getting late. And, yeah, we did drag out the end just because I wanted to talk to Harry. Yeah. All right. See you guys later. Take care. Have a good one, and remember, very happy 4th of July. And remember, love history. You got the TikTok. Wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to look at that. All right, have a good one. Bye bye now. And yep.